Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO, Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM here in New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so much and could not do it without you. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, the sonic surgeon, Dr. Snick, award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music. He is the voice of our intro. His music is the background of our intro. We appreciate you so very much. You completely rock, and everybody loves it. Just saying. Also, big thank you, Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the artwork that makes up the Outer Realm. So you can find him on Instagram. You can find him on Facebook. Does a lot of custom stuff, has a lot of horror themed stuff ready to go, but does beautiful stuff, and he can pretty much do just about anything. So check him out. Now tonight, of course, we have our 300 episode, 300, which is kind of cool, right? So we thought we would just do this like round table thing. And of course, you'll notice my little bubbly compadre is not here. Her daughter is having surgery pretty much as we speak. So hoping that she's coming out of it. So sending a lot of well wishes over to Amelia and her family. So yeah, see right here. Yeah, right there. So anyway, send her some love, send her some prayers, well wishes, light, all of that jive. I'm sure she will really appreciate it. So tonight we thought we would do this roundtable Q&A, and we thought we would talk about, I mean, as you know, in the chat room, it's pretty much open for discussion wherever it takes us. But tonight we've got Joe, and Joe's going to, I mean, his area of expertise is alien abductions, alien,
Oh, I thought you were going to say sexy women. That's my area of expertise. I
On a spaceship.
Alien shit. I don't know what you're talking about, this alien stuff, man.
Yeah, right there. Okay. So it'll be fun, right? It's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
But we have people chiming in. So hey, William, Kenny, Zachman, Dana, Wayne, how's it going? Because you're looking
Wayne,
a bit rough for the coast of the bubbles. You're looking rough.
Is there any of the cage left, Wayne? I'm asking you. I mean, I hear she's.
I haven't given it all away.
She's giving all the cage away, man. I'm just checking. It ain't raining on your head or nothing up there in Canada. Checking, people.
No. Hey, it's been a rough couple of days. The guy worked like a dog getting this place ready. So he goes, oh, Zachman says, hey, that's my expertise too. So
Zach, I was thinking about you about 2 days ago. I was sipping some Jamesons with a nice cigar. I said, this reminds me of somebody I met online. You just popped into my head all the things I could have been thinking about at the time, and you
Zachman, yeah. Hey,
so something twisted about that whole thing right there,
right? Especially considering what you were just talking about now. And
speaking of that, remember, you should be seeing your stuff sometime. Went out this morning, so probably 3 days. You should. If you don't see it in 3 days, text me or call me or
it has to go to Canada. It's not coming in 3 days.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting y'all are in Canada. You damn Canadians.
Tamara. So he's fibbing.
Look, now I gotta say this. You Canadians have gone up 2 steps on my list now. I didn't know Elon's mom was from Canada, even though she's nuts. Still, Elon's great. So that's 2 points.
Oh, don't even go there. Thank you, Dana. Big hugs to you. Be nice to me, Joe. People love me.
If I was a girl, I'd be like, hey, Elon, how you doing, baby?
Whatever.
Saying, man. I mean, first off, he's second richest man in the world.
Oh, Elon.
That's not enough.
Right? I know.
He is kind of a doughboy look, but put a pair of goggles on, not worry about it.
So it could be like a double bagger. Maybe that's mean to say.
It could be. It could be. Well,
Don't know.
I don't want to hate. I really like the guy. He's cool, and he does believe in aliens. By the way, I didn't know that. I just found that out the other day.
Well, how could he not?
Well, it's
Like
it's hard to get hold
open-minded.
of this guy. I've been trying to get an interview with him, so finally I've met some people in his. How can I say this? His outer inner circle. I don't know how to explain it, but so his inner circle, the people that work for them, have actually met some people in that work for the inner circle now. So
The inner circle.
so it's hard. Well, I've been able to talk to people like Bigelow and stuff like that, but this guy is hard, man. And they're very protective of him, which is a good thing. I'm not hating, but he's just hard to get hold to. Well, I want to bring him on the network. I'd like to do an interview with him. I'd like to get his thoughts on the whole wide realm of things, from politics to aliens, a lot of things in between. See, I'm not showing no cleavage tonight. Y'all see that?
See, maybe we could share him.
Hey, that would work. Maybe we just do a
Elon can
joint
handle
interview. We'll
a
bring him on the
tag
Gray
team
Zone as a
interview.
special guest. It's
Yeah.
Oh, real quick before we get anything deep, Roku should be up in the next 2 or 3 days, so y'all be sure to check it out. The Gray Zones will be available. They are probably starting around the 10th, and they will be not for free. You will have to pay for them, but they will be available. At first, there'll be 5, but probably by the end of the month, they will all be up there. So you'll be able to go over there and look at them on Roku and check them out.
And check out some of the older episodes too.
Yes,
Like,
there's a lot of the old episodes. They're going to be getting pushed down. Right now, they're closer to the top, but by the end of the month, they'll be way at the bottom of the list. But, we're putting up, I think we're currently putting up, right now we have 12 days up of material up there for y'all to watch. Some of it's, but none of it's older than about 20. When did y'all come on?
wonder what
When did y'all come on the network? Yeah.
I'm insulted. 2019.
I don't remember saying so. Okay, so about 2017. It goes back to about as far as 2017. We get to see people like Christina George and Chris George and some of the other older hosts that have gone the way of the dodo bird, to say, for lack of a better way of saying it. And a lot of good stuff coming up, though, too. Too much stuff to talk about. Michelle and I are going to have to do a network show on just what all the different things coming on the network. Cause it's
Probably wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, it's too much to talk about tonight. But all I can say is look for a lot of things. You will be able to see us on your 70 and 85-inch television now without anything but pushing a button.
We'll have to do it on Joe's show.
Look, I'm a sexy damn bastard. You can put me on 75-inch. I don't mind.
I'm booked solid to the end of March. So, you want to do it, have to be on your show.
It's well, no, if we bring Elon on, you and I will do a joint interview with Elon.
That'd be fun.
I'm sure he would enjoy it more. No, I'm not bringing Emily on. She'd be trying to steal his ass. Not just teasing.
He's ours, dang it.
That's right. And
okay.
Oh man, a lot of weirdness is going on around in the world right now.
Yeah, we have a question for you already, Joe.
What? You mean like Burger King? BEK? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Joe.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm a little rowdy tonight, so you better watch out.
Oh, yeah, he's hyper. And he's just getting ready to hijack the show again, so I thought he'd put down some topics.
I knew it was her 300th show, so I came looking purdy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Out of respect, I know she works her ass off for not just the show, but for me as well.
Always. So let's answer the first question. Regarding aliens, the question she always asks, are they involved with the BEK?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know.
Honest answer.
Well, I don't know. You tell me what BEK means, because my brain is fried right now. So it's like I said, it's on overdrive. I've been
maybe elaborate for our listeners. And
I've been drinking a lot of Coke and a lot of coffee today. Even though I'm not supposed to be drinking Coke, I've been drinking a lot of it today.
BEK.
And this damn Folgers is phallus. It's good.
If you can elaborate on that for Joe, he will answer.
Yes, because Joe's
black-eyed kids, Joe.
Well,
that could be,
Well, I didn't know. I could have double checked. It could have been anything. So I wanted to make sure before we got off on a tangent. Anyway, the black-eyed kid. So there's a big problem with all of this. I can't say it like this. So I've known contactees that have met the black-eyed children and the black-eyed people on board ships. And for lack of better, they're like us. And what I mean by that is they're going through abductions. They're having the same experiences we are. They're around the same technological level we are. There are keepers, just like our humans are keepers on board the ship. So some of them are allowed to interact with us, learning how we are. But some of us are allowed to interact with them as well. So like as we're seeing black-eyed people here in bedrooms and stuff, some people over there are seeing blue-eyed or green-eyed or brown-eyed, which they don't have on their planet. Now, I want to clarify that. There's definitely that. But there is another syndrome that a lot of people think is paranormal. I'm not sure what it is. It's not alien, though, because we know about what the aliens have seen and what goes on with the black-eyed. And when you see the black-eyed people, usually from the aliens, they're going to be solid. You'll be able to touch them. They're not going to be wispy or ghosty. They're not going to be like you're seeing them through a veil or anything like that. They're actually going to be with the Greys physically in the room. Or with the reptilians physically in the room. So it's a little bit different. Now, there are some they're like, some people say they've seen them across the veil. Now, are they seeing those aliens across the veil? Or is it the same black-eyed kids across the veil instead of being in the room? That's possible. But I can't, there's no definitive research in it. Well, at least with the black-eyed children aboard the ship, there's a lot of research in it. Now, if we get into my paranormal friends, there's a whole host of things they think it is. From demonic possession to.
But what about people who aren't possessed, but whose eyes can go black, or slit, or change colors? Like
they can change colors. I don't know if
they
going
could go.
black because
No,
your
I mean,
pupils
no.
are
Some
black.
people, you can get red eyes, you can get black eyes, you can get slits in your eyes, you could get your eyes could go from slate to green. But these are people with colored eyes to start with, like not so much brown eyes, for example.
Before anybody asks, all green-eyed people are sexy. Just so you know. Okay, we can move on.
Thank you.
All green-eyed people are sexy. You just might as well know that up front. Don't get yourself in a roar. Red eyes, red hair. Oh, red. Oh, yeah. Oh my God, we can't even go there. Go ahead.
So what? What would be your responses to something like that? Because that could fall under just about anything.
Well, see, that's the problem with these black-eyed children is there's at least 3 realms they can fall into. They can fall into just a normal thing, some kind of weird fluky thing that people get, or they could fall in to the alien thing, or they could fall into the paranormal thing. The weird thing for me with the paranormal thing is just too many different things. Okay, there's like, oh, the little girl standing there had black eyes, and she was like fire coming out her head or snakes coming out her head. Okay, that's definitely paranormal. It has nothing to do with aliens. But why do all evil, and I'm saying evil, why do all evil anything have black eyes? See, I just have a fundamental problem with that. That's like racism or something. Well, first off, I've been in the paranormal field a long time. I mean, I've been in ufology a long time, but I grew up in New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans itself is a paranormal field. The whole damn city is.
It is. Yeah.
So, when you're raised there, it's a little different. And we treat paranormal, how can I say this? We could treat it more like every day. Even the newscasters down here. Matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, there was one I'm talking, and something happened in the studio, and she's like, I told him not to build this studio here. I told him this place was haunted. I told him. And then you hear some guy, one of the lighting guys, freak out because something touched him, but there was nothing there. Mm. So, I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff like that happens. Or you'll be walking along, and all of a sudden you hear your keys drop 5 feet behind you. You're like, wait, what? How the hell that happened? Now, you're a little drunk and all, but still, usually your keys in your pocket don't pop out and fall 5 feet behind you. It's just a little weird. And there's other things like that, where sometimes you'll get to your car and it's turned around. You're like, what? What the hell happened here? And it's just weird.
Get out of my car.
Well, it's just weird. I mean, and then one of my favorites is, so we're walking. So here's the cathedral, St. Louis Cathedral in Pirates Island is right here, Pirates. So we're walking down. Every now and then you'll be walking down, and especially about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll be walking around, and all of a sudden you'll see 2 or 3 women in these big Bella ball gowns just walking down the street to get the things, moseying back and forth like they do. And they'll turn around and look at you. They'll even smile. They got normal hair, normal eyes, normal for whatever the time period is. And then they turn around, they walk a little while, and they're gone. Now, it's not just you that see them. A lot of times there'll be people having drinks or cocktails or an early breakfast sitting on the side. There's several clubs and restaurants there. They'll see them as well. It's just weird. Or my favorite one is the girls that pee on Canal Street. This shit cracks me up. Yeah. So, and most people don't know this, but in New Orleans, they got these little drains that run everywhere. So back in the 1800s, that was so the women could squat with their big dresses and tinkle and then walk away. And that's what they were for. No, that's what they were actually for. You go check it for yourselves. And every now and then people will see that and they don't understand what's going on. They'll be like, especially if they're not from here. They're like, I'm watching these women. All of a sudden they kind of squat and they sit there a minute and then they just kind of lift up and walk away and like kind of float off and then they disappear. That's what freaks them out, is the disappearing part.
So is this like a residual thing, like a replay, or are these actually
You know,
spirits?
some of them I thought were replays and some of them are replays. To be totally honest with you, some of them are actually replays. Now,
Right.
there was an incident at Dueling Oaks where someone did see a gentleman with glaring black eyes fighting another gentleman who had glaring
Oh,
blue eyes. Now, who was evil, who was not, I don't have no idea. But this thing played a few times and then it quit. It seemed to just go away. No one's seen them again after that. A bunch of, because they have Dueling Oaks. So there's a place in City Park where they have these 300-year oak trees, one on one side, one on the other side, and they're big and they come all the way to the ground. And they sweep down. There's a little hole in the front of them, so each team would get on each side, and you know they have their people with them, and they'd be prepping it and getting ready for their sword fight or gun fight or whatever it may be.
mm,
And that's why they call them duel oaks, because the duel happened in between the trees. But you know, and then there's a case in the Sanger Theater where someone seen, what did he say? He said they were ghostly white with deep, dark, glaring eyes. He said, but they seemed human to him, or like not. He wasn't
mm.
scared of them. He didn't think they were demons or ghosties. He thought they were
No, no,
something
no.
else.
Right,
And
right.
but you know, it's hard to put a thing on this because the cases are rare to start off with, and
Mm.
the cases that you do get are sporadic, and they're sporadic in the way that this case says this thing, this one says that thing, this one says this thing. You know, a good friend of mine from Southern Paranormal gives me crap about it all the time because he thinks they're all demons. He said if they got black eyes, they're demons.
That's a religious belief system. A lot of the more like the born again Christian faith tells you that there's no such thing as ghosts at all, that they are all demons and mimics. So I think a lot of it has to do with your faith, what your background is. You know, to a ufologist, they're going to be some kind of extraterrestrial. Wayne says the dark entity encountered had orangey red eyes with vertical black slits in them.
Oh shit, that sounds like a reptilian.
It was a big shadow being, actually. Yeah, it
Oh my
was.
god, man. What the
I
hell did
know,
you get
right?
into there?
I know. Hey, hello, Brian. How's it going, my friend?
Hello, people. People of Earth. Hear
Yes.
me.
So so I don't know. I think your faith, your religious faith, like
Your faith
background, your
definitely is a
faith
part of it.
will.
There's no doubt about that.
I know. So I mean,
What's
we
been
know that the.
interesting is to watch faith
Hey,
progress, especially when
Alex.
it comes to UFOs. They've progressed. They've brought themselves forward, kicking and screaming, mind you, but they
Right.
brought themselves forward. So it's not a non-belief anymore. They do believe that there is advanced life out there. What cracks me up is the Christians believe, especially the Greys and the reptilians, or how do they say it? They're
Mm,
spiritually more evolved than we are at a magnitude of like 50. So I was
mm,
talking with Monsignor Balducci at the Washington Press Club in DC. I was doing a lecture. I think it was either the 9th or 10th X conference. But anyway, doesn't really matter. I was there doing a speech, and Paula Harris was there, and
mm,
I wanted to talk to Monsignor because I had heard him say that the Vatican had information, and he only spoke Italian, by the way, and I speak zero Italian. There
mm,
might be one word in there. And but so I asked her if she would translate. She had no problem. He had no problem. So we were having dinner and we were talking about this. It was a great conversation, and everybody at my table was really enjoying it. It was just fabulous conversation. And then on his own volition, without me pressing or asking him, he said that the Vatican believes that the aliens are on a much spiritual evolution than we are, much higher spiritual evolution than we are, and probably that's what they said, 50 to 100 fold more higher. And he had mentioned, he said, you know, we have to look at how old humans are versus these aliens in space who are probably hundreds of millions of years old. Of course, they're going to be closer to God than we are because they've had more time to get there. True or not true, I have no idea because I've never asked that question, but I found it interesting that the Vatican took that hard line on that. So about a year later, I was
mm.
talking with the Vatican's astronomer. And so I asked him, I said, this is what my senior, but he said, oh no, this is the belief inside the church. He said, you have to remember, Joe, they've known about aliens much longer than anybody wants to admit to. He said, at least 1,000 years or more. He said, there's artifacts all over locked up downstairs, as he said. And he said, I'll introduce you to some bishops that will also show you the same belief that yes, we believe that aliens are here. And we do. They also believe that God's their creator. They just believe that they're closer to God than we are, and the fact that they've just been around longer, and they've had more time to find out who God really is. And then it gets confusing because when you ask them, do they believe in Jesus? 4 of them told me this. Well, they didn't need Jesus like we did. Shit like that. Just because I was raised Christian, a Catholic, and I'm like, what the hell?
That's like mind ninja stuff. What kind of comment is that?
What's going on here? But it's just unbelievable to hear someone that high up in the church admit to it. It's just unbelievable he would even admit to that. And it's strange, but they definitely do. So and the Jewish have always believed. It's never been a thing for them.
It's
The
true.
Muslims don't necessarily believe, but the Muslims believe in genies and jinns, which are kind of much the same damn thing. And they also believe in these what do they call them? They look like Borg ships, big square ships that the jinns live in that come. So yes, I think they kind of believe too.
Right.
So it's one of those things. And some worlds may have grown up without war and without fighting. See, that's the thing. Humans have make bad assumptions sometimes to think that everyone in the universe started out like we did, divided. Well, that's not true. Some worlds may have been a single world from day one.
Right.
They've already, and they're probably got way more advanced for the simple fact that all their scientists were working on, cures and medicines and not nuclear bombs to blow each other up. It's a different reality. So places like this who already believe and already are in love and already have the love, they don't really need anything else. Well, because it's just one of those things. But I don't know. All I can say is ask the damn aliens.
Well, Ackman makes a good point. They may not need Jesus because they may have access to the supernatural abilities that Jesus had, or in their case, it may be.
Well, they definitely, if they can't do it with that, they could do it with technology. So that's been an argument. So if you ever go see the late great Planet Earth, they talk about 85% of prophecies always come true. So everything that is prophecy, 85%, actually about 90% now has come true. But when they talk about miracles, they talk about how many miracles that man can reproduce himself today. So if you go back to the miracles that Jesus created, all of them can be reproduced today. The only ones we haven't been able to reproduce is curing the sick with a wave of our hand. But we can bring in fish with a wave of a hand and bring in about tens of thousands.
Technology and advancement. Let's face it, they didn't have it back then.
No, they didn't. But that doesn't mean he did. See, we all assume that it's so. Does anybody know how Mary got pregnant? I do.
Do I want to do this on my show?
I'm just asking, does anybody know how she got pregnant? This is important if you do extraterrestrial work. It's an important thing. Where was she? How long was she missing? Things like that. You always have to take that into consideration. But gently I don't really care. Well, I don't personally care. I say this all the time at conferences and on television and everywhere else on radio. I tell everybody the same thing. Believe whatever makes you feel as snug as a bug in a rug. It's important for you to feel safe and comfortable and loved. And whatever it takes for you to feel like that is what you should believe. Whatever it is. Well, I got friends that are devil worshippers that feel loved and comfortable. So I don't know what to tell you.
No, it's true. Bastards. You follow, the Luciferians. They've got it together.
And you're right, Dana. If they wanted to kill us, we'd be dead.
That's right.
So this has always been another argument when people tell me, oh, they're here to eat us or wipe us out, or they're here to save us and enlighten us. Okay. They've been here a long time. They haven't wiped us out. They haven't killed us. And guess what? They definitely have not enlightened us. So, no, they may be here to observe and a few other things. But
some will tell you that they have been enlightened by their by the experience.
That's the real problem. When anybody tells me that, the first thing comes out of my mouth is, are you living on the same planet I am? I mean, come on. Putin's wanting to nuke us right now. Europe's crashing all over the place. The world's basically, I don't want to say that on air, but it's in a bad place.
We're in
so you can't,
easy time. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so you can't really say, and it's not just recently. It's been going on for 2,000 years at least. Well, really, if you go back to the Romans, 4,000 years. Sure, if you go back to the Egyptian and Sumerian, 6,000 years. So the problem is we've never made that next step. We've never made the step and put our hands out like America. America's been powerful for a long time. It could have just put its hands out to everybody and said, let's be friends. Let's organize a one world government and let's just take the world on the way it should be. Let's have one military that polices the planet, and let's get rid of all that money that we spend. I mean, America's going to spend almost $1 trillion on military. Worldwide, I think with all the countries, they're going to be almost $3 trillion. You could cure cancer if you did that every year. If you took all the scientists from all around the world and put them together and gave them all that money, they would have cured a lot of things. So, we're just not there. So that's not enlightenment to me. That's moronic. So when people tell me, oh, they're here to enlighten us, I said, when is it going to happen? Where is it going to happen? How is it going to happen?
It's maybe it's an individual belief. Maybe it's also an experience. Some people have horrific experiences. Some people have amazing experiences.
Well,
Alex,
I would think.
Yeah.
Well, I am. Alex, it's true.
Said cautiously, Mr. Montaldo.
It is true, but we don't have to have the Illuminati one world government. There's other ways to do this. It's just there has to be a way because it can't keep going on 200 separate countries. It hasn't worked, and the whole time man existed, so it's not going to work in the future. And we're never going to get to the things we need to do as a divided world. We can't get into deep space and colonize worlds when our own planet's divided. Because if we get out there and piss somebody off, we're going to need the whole world's resources. Or really, just to do general big colonization, except for Elon, he can do it by himself. But the rest of us need to get together. And we're nowhere near that right now. I mean, we're just not.
Well, we definitely need some kind of an intervention. But the key is can we intervene ourselves? Can we do this ourselves? Or do we need help? Many people think, no, the aliens need to come and save us. Other people think, no, you know what? Maybe it is a matter of probably. I mean, we have NATO. You think this is a stage for everybody to be able, all these countries to be able to come in and get some resolution. But that apparently doesn't seem to be a thing. So I don't know. Can aliens help us? Do they care enough to come and help us, or are we all just like pretty much?
Well, Tamara, I've asked that question a lot of times, and I get stupid answers like I get stupid answers like Fukushima, places like Chernobyl. They didn't intervene, and the West Coast is still being pounded by radiation even now from Fukushima. And there's nobody stepping in or enlightening us or giving us even the technology to clean it up. They're not even slipping it to the government so we can clean it up. Because in the end, and I hate to say it like this, in the end, they care about the people that are contacted. The other 6.5 billion, they don't give a ass about it.
How do you know that for sure?
Actions speak louder than words, baby.
They
treat the contactees one way and the rest of the world. Put it this way. There's 4.5 billion people walking around with one of these right now. Why do we get less photos of UFOs today or yaps today than we did in the 70s when we barely had any cameras running around, or the 50s or 60s? Why is that?
No.
Because the contactees already know. We already know they're here. Anybody who's been contacted and has woke up, has awakened, they know they're here. They know part of their agendas. So they're not necessarily worried about where they're going to be. But the rest of y'all should be worried. It's not that they're not going to harm you, but they're going to watch you be harmed. The people who are going to get taken are going to get taken, and the rest of them, they're not going to intervene.
You have researchers out there, and I mean Preston Dennett is one. I mean, I adore him.
I love Preston, but
I do. I love Preston. He gives some really great insight, but I like it because it's not always a typical gloom and doom. He actually has really great stories that are positive, but there are others like him who truly believe that, ET cannot necessarily intervene. It's like that prime directive thing, but they would help if push came to shove. They would help.
When we dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, did they get involved? Hell no, they didn't. They were probably up there going, look at these stupid humans.
No, but
they're going to drop a nuke. Look at this.
I think that event sort of drew more attention to us.
Again, Chernobyl and Fukushima and 3 Mile Island. These are all been major radioactive, and they didn't step in. And let me tell y'all something. If Putin launches a nuke, they're not going to intervene. So there's another way to explain this. So if we wipe our whole selves out, they have the ability to clean up the planet quickly too. And they can just recolonize this planet. So basically for them, if we're going to survive, we got to survive on our own. No planet or any planets, any aliens that are out there, any other part of the council, any of that, they all came to power on their own. And
Right.
they believe in that. They can push in pride, mess around and see how we're doing and help us in certain areas, but they cannot directly interfere in what's going on in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not going to. So,
Mm-hmm.
and we can see that through, well, look at COVID.
Mm.
They don't get involved. I mean, on things that make a difference, they don't
Mm-hmm.
get involved. Things that don't make a difference to the planet, they do get involved in. So they've
Right.
saved many contactees from death.
But there's
We've
also the belief that some ETs are actually part of this shadow government or government are really high
well,
up
no,
and that are
I got a
making things
perfect
go the
question for
other
you.
way.
Why
What?
would any advanced species of any kind want to deal with our politicians?
Well, I guess it depends if it's a control thing. Maybe the
But why?
politicians
They don't.
are
They do not need our politicians for anything. The government cannot stop them from doing abductions. They
right.
cannot stop them from doing anything they want. So, what need would they? I wouldn't. If I was an
So why not
advanced
take
alien
out the
going to
governments?
another world, why?
Like Tamara says, do you think that the aliens will
They
out the
could, but why
government?
would they? They don't need to because you have to remember only about 15% of the planet is contacted. The other 85% to them is cannon fodder. That I think
Mm,
that's the hardest thing for humans to understand is that 85% of y'all are dust. They don't care.
mm.
They already know what's going to happen to you. They don't
I
care.
find that's a bit harsh. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to say,
Why
because
would that be harsh?
there's a lot of research out there
I
where
don't see you out there
or
saving the
researchers. Let's
penguins
just say
or the.
researchers. There's a lot of people who are saying no. They believe that
Of course they
because
believe because they want to believe in. Because they
look at
want.
when we did
Hey,
the
what if
gray
you
zone.
all loved?
No,
I
no,
want a
no,
teddy
no,
bear.
no. Look at when we did the gray zone. Let's
Teddy
face it,
bear.
we're
That's what
going
it is.
back into ancient times here where, you know, ancient cultures and civilizations spoke of their friends from the stars, coexisted with them. They were taught by them. They emulated
And
them.
you're proving my point. Did they ever stop the Romans from just sweeping across the planet, or the
No,
Greeks for that matter? Did they stop the
there
burning
was
of the
evolution,
Library of
though.
Alexandria?
No,
That
but there
set
was
us back at least 2,000 years. They didn't stop that.
there was evolution that went on
There was
between both
de-evolution.
species or races working together. And there's evidence of this all over the damn ancient world.
Not so much working
So
together.
do you think, well, okay, I mean, you know,
The Sumerians say they created us as a slave race.
sure, but we're
So do
going
the
back.
Egyptians,
Let's
by the
let's go
way.
back to even 1,500 years ago, even with the Aztecs and the Incas and the Peruvians. I mean, there's. Do you remember we did an episode of the Gray Zone and we talked a lot about these ancient civilizations. There was the Hopi and their beliefs, and when they went underground and they were protected and cared for by who they call the ant people, which looked a lot like grays and in their imagery.
Mhm.
What about in Peru when things got really bad there? Then they had a reptilian
Yeah,
go
you know what they
down
did? They took the people and left the other ones on the planet. In
well,
the end,
every culture
this
does
sounds
it.
a lot like religion, but in the end, they're
Mm,
only worried about the chosen ones. The original ones that were taken, how many ever tens of thousands of years ago, those family lines are the family lines they abducted even today.
mm,
And that's the only families they're worried about. The
right.
ones that are dead and the ones that interbred with other people. And as long as you have those abilities, you can't even be considered a contactee if you're not at least an empath. And
Hmm.
most of them want you to be an empath and a telepath. And no, there's no such thing as a latent telepath.
Okay.
Um,
I just need to make one quick comment to go
Go ahead.
because a lot of comments and questions are coming in. Guys, I just want to remind you there are 8 chat rooms. It's like a super highway
That's
coming
right.
down to one
Spit it
link.
out
So
in there,
I,
people.
I will I will get to everybody. Just be patient with me. I'm not trying to overlook anybody.
Plus, she's got to
Um,
shut me up long enough to talk.
yeah. So so Alex says, has it ever occurred that they intervened enough to get us in a situation where we wipe ourselves out and then they can have free reign?
Well, let me tell you this: if by some miracle the humans could pull itself together and become a one race, because we are, after
Right.
all, just one race. If we could become this one race and start exploring deep space and curing our planet and curing the people on our planet, then they may say, okay, you know,
Mhm.
once we get out into deep space and we can colonize, they'll come looking more serious at us. But we
Right.
still have to be united here. They're never going to look at this planet seriously until it's a united planet. And they're not going to give us technologies that could kill them.
Hmm. No, for sure.
They're just not going to do that. They don't feel comfortable with us yet. And why
Okay.
would you give anything to the American government? Oh my God, I'm an American. I can tell you all that.
Okay, next question. I remember being in a foster home in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, going to see a crop circle in 1975, question mark. I have searched since, and I'm sure it happened, but found nothing. My dreams
So,
of
so,
aliens and UFOs leave me scared. I have a possible scoop mark and nasal issues. Am I paranoid?
so let me ask you something. Now, did you grow up in an orphanage in Canada? This is really important because we did a big research on this. There's a big thing about this. So I'm just curious. I mean, did you spend a lot of time in the orphanage in Canada? Because we've got almost 50% of our contactees from Canada grew up in an orphanage.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's a very strange thing. It's a very weird thing. It was almost like it was planted like that.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, the
like what?
Baptists believe everything is evil. Yeah, when I left the Catholic Church, I went and did Baptist. I was like, well, y'all are no better than freaking Catholics. Um, it's weird when we say that because I know when people tell me all the time, we're killing our planet. No, we're not killing the planet. We're killing ourselves. The planet ain't going nowhere. Until we figure out a way to blow up the core, there's nothing to worry about. The planet will be here. There's been 5 great extinctions on this planet already. I mean, we've had catastrophic meteorites, earthquakes, tsunamis, and damn calderas go off. The planet's still here. We'll be the ones that are dead. And some other life form will come up behind us, whatever it may be, and replace us. And in 100 million years from now, they'll be asking the same questions we are. And we don't know if there was human life or intelligent life before. So we do know one thing. There's a map that Russians have. It's called the Pravda map. It's a map of the creator. This map dates back to about 120 million years, which, by the way, we weren't here then. So it does suggest that there was advanced life on this planet. Remember, and this map was taken from an aerial view. It was a resource map that when they found it, they took it from when it was made from an aerial view, a pretty high up aerial view, at least 2.5 miles. So as far as I know, unless they were flying a pterodactyl, I'm not sure how they got an aerial view. So it does suggest that there was someone here. And then there have been on 3 or 4 different locations, there's been footprints found underneath dinosaur prints. Now you got to watch. Some of these have been hoaxed, but there are some real. There's a set in Arkansas that's real. There's a couple of sets in different places that are actually real. They can't debunk them. So it does suggest that there was, but they're gone. Whatever killed the dinosaurs killed them, or they left. Maybe they were advanced enough to leave, but a lot of people think they were the reptilians, and they left and went home. They were just colonizing Earth. They were well on their way to creating a big colony here when the disaster came. Well, a lot of people think the grays of the humans were colonizing Mars and Venus. You have to remember, it wasn't just Earth that bit the big one. Mars was a lush green planet. They think Venus was a lush green planet. Earth was a lush green planet. All of a sudden, kaboom, all of them bit the big one. Yeah. Well, they like to argue between. I love this one. Oh, well, there could have been lush between 55 million and 2 billion years ago. Well, that's a big, big place to look around.
I mean,
but if you dream about UFOs and you dream about them regularly, you need to start writing it down. More than likely, you've been taken. Doesn't mean 100%, but usually contact manifests in dreams first. It can be daydreams, it can be night dreams, but it usually manifests there first. That's where it tends to come out of, because the ordinary person, especially if you're religious, has a hard time digesting this. And even though you're looking at these dreams, you can even see your position in these dreams. It's just hard for you to think that, first off, this is even happening to you and that aliens are even real. If you're a Christian especially, it's hard to think that aliens are even real. So you have to deal with that, and then you have to deal with what's going on. And then, because most of the time, or about half the time, your spouse is not going to be a contactee. Now, it's changing as times move forward. Contactees are finding each other. It's a little weird the way it happens. But there's still a good chance that your husband or wife will not understand if you tell them this, especially if you're just every ordinary people going to church, working, having kids. When you go say, hey, baby, I think aliens have taken me. Really? Let's go to the nut house right now. I mean, it's a hard thing.
And
it depends on the person. Not everybody's going to be that way.
Even talking about seeing spirits and things like that, it would put you in a whole other category. So here's another.
Anybody seeing ghosts, I think, should be locked up anyway. So
here's another just another twist. So you have a lot of because I do believe the paranormal
It's true.
and ufology bridge at some point. Do you think a lot of these people who are doing spirit communication, like through ghost boxes that use
I think they
frequency,
need to go see the Nutter House, is what I think, but that's
do
just my
you
own
think
opinion.
maybe they're talking to aliens and not?
Well, y'all, you already know my view on ghosts. I
I know, I know. It's so
got a
weird.
view on
I'm gonna
ghosts that
make you
drives
say it.
all paranormal people
Say it.
insane
Say it.
because I can't help it. I think
Say it.
I love
Do it.
ghosties. That's all I can tell you. I'm a ghost lover.
No, I
Uh,
think it's a really good perspective. So say it. I think as I do lean towards that in
well,
many
look, not
situations.
all ghosts,
Not all, but some.
but I do believe a lot of ghosts are dimensional bleed through. It's especially since the veils are rubbing up on each other from time to time.
Hmm.
You know, the reason I started thinking that is a friend of mine was seeing his daddy, and his daddy had been dead for about 5 days, and he kept seeing his daddy, and every day he would tell me what he saw, and I was like, that don't sound like your daddy. He said, look just like him,
Hmm.
but there was some of his traits he had, and this guy smoked a pipe. Well, his dad didn't smoke at all, but he was smoking a pipe. He said, well, maybe since he crossed over, he's smoking a pipe. So what it
Hmm.
made me start thinking is when you're so distressed and the veils are so close that you can force yourself across. So when you're talking to this person, it's actually your dad, but it's your dad from a different dimension. He's seeing you. You've hopped into your body on another dimensional plane, and now you're talking to your dad, and your dad's talking to you, and you're like freaking out because your dad's dead. But in this dimension, your dad is not dead. So remember,
Hmm.
we live in the multiverse now. We know that. So we
Okay.
know there's lots of planes. But by saying that, I don't want everybody to think that I think all ghosts are dimensional beings, but I do think a lot of them are.
Okay.
Especially the ones that do the looping thing. I think they're just somebody on another plane that we're catching from time
Or
to
like a
time.
replay.
Yeah, so that I think is definitely a dimensional bleed through.
I keep, yeah, well, if it's a bleed through, because I mean, in some replays, it is just that. It's an imprint in
Just that,
time
yes,
that
it's
just
just an imprint
replays
on time.
itself like a recording. But what about, I'll give you an example, and I'd
I'm
like
carrying
to
my
hear
salt pistol everywhere I
your
go.
opinion on it. Now, on two separate occasions, my mother, which is why I can say with great courage, because she's like of sound mind, but she said when my father was first moved to assisted living because he has Alzheimer's, just for anybody wondering, um, she ended up with a visit one night, and she goes, I was awake, like I hadn't quite fallen asleep because she's just trying to get used to the fact, it was her first week. He wasn't there. Oh, you so did not do that on this show.
You can't see nothing.
Don't even. Don't.
Dude.
That's okay. I'm waiting for my PayPal paycheck for
Oh
that
man,
crap.
listen to how she gives me so much trouble about this.
Anyway, you're freaking right.
Hey, I did not say anything about it. See, you're making a bigger deal out of it than I did.
Oh. We will talk about it. Anyway, she saw my father. He sat on the bed went down. She reached back because she thought maybe I'm just seeing things. She touched him, and it was solid form, but he didn't speak, and he just basically sat very silently. I'm like, my father is living. And he was living at that time. This has happened to her twice. And one of those times, the second time, she said his clothing just looked like it was too big for him.
Mm.
Now, in the paranormal world, they'll tell you it's a mimic, it's a demon, don't interact. But I mean, how do you see this? It's not. Or is this a
I would
bleed
definitely
through?
think that was dimensional bleed through. One of the
Right.
problems with the paranormal world is the same problem ufology has. They're very dogmatic in their views. When someone comes up with something new, instead
Mm.
of researching it, they want to fight about it. No, people, just sometimes you're going to learn new stuff. One of the things I learned about ufology is half of what I learned in the beginning was wrong. Now that I've been doing it for 40 years, it's a whole different view for me. But same thing with the paranormal. A lot of what I learned early in the early days of paranormal turned out to be wrong. But the field won't let it change because whatever happens to get you on TV or happens to make you get on the radio, that's what you want to talk about. Well, a lot of times you're just lying to people. So you got to quit that. You got to do real research. It's like poltergeist. Poltergeists a lot of times are associated with alien contact. Okay, now there's two types of poltergeist, I guess. So the alien contact is like if you ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when it shows up and everything in the room starts moving around, doing and jumping off of shelves. And that's a poltergeist, but that's not a poltergeist caused by spiritual activity. It's a poltergeist caused by whatever kind of fields the aliens use when they come on board and come into your house. It activates everything. But with the other kind, it's definitely caused by a spiritual. And a lot of times it's demonic in nature because it's throwing shit at you. So there are two different kinds, but people don't want to do it. They want to just say it's one poltergeist. No, it's not. You know,
Well,
why
poltergeist is like psychokinesis, right? That's
yeah. So
self-induced.
that's what I'm saying. So anytime a ship gets near a house, a lot of times there'll be poltergeist activity, but it's not because of anything to do paranormal. It's just, well, I shouldn't say paranormal, but it's just the ships, the fields of the ship cause things to fall off, pots and pans that clang together, toys to activate, cars to turn on and off, things like that. And that's just the field of the
Like
ship causing that.
footsteps or
Well, no,
like
see, I don't hear footsteps now. The stuff I was doing,
chirping and like clicking and
well, you might hear clicking and
things
stuff like that.
moving
That's if the aliens,
around.
yes, if the aliens are moving around your house, you might hear that. But
Sure and hell
then when you
do.
get into the other kind of poltergeist that's created by a ghost or a demon, that's a whole different thing. Or an unusually amount of paranormal activity sometimes can kick off a poltergeist. But those are different. They're not. There's no UFO involved in that. There's no spacecraft there. That's just something else. It's Ghostbuster plasma, whatever. I'm sorry. I'm not looking at that room no more. Yeah, look, everybody's in this room. You got to come over here. I'm ignoring y'all. And by the way, whoever said that about the UFOs actually being fallen angels, a lot of people believe that. But my question is why does a demon need a flying saucer? I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, why would they need any of that? I mean, a demon's a demon. It just hops around between dimensions on its own. It don't need any flying saucers. And I got a question for y'all. When we leave this planet and go in space, demons are earthbound. So are they going to go into space with us? Because, all demons are supposed to be earthbound.
They
They're
can
not supposed to be
attach
able to
to
leave.
essence, to the physical. So I don't know if they
But
can attach to
they can
essence and
attach to you. But
physical.
if you
Could they
leave the
go?
planet, you're no longer earthbound. So will they just dissolve when they get into deep space? Because they're no longer earthbound. I mean, the curse is to be earthbound. So if you leave Earth, that's the curse. So you're just going to disappear. I've always wondered about that. It's just one of them stupid questions. It's just one of them things that people
Anybody
don't
want to
like.
chime in? Come on, I got a big chat room. Chime in. What are your thoughts?
They're like, they don't want to talk about that. Joe's crazy talking about stuff like that. It's
No,
just
but
weird questions.
it is.
It's the way my weird old brain works. But
Yeah.
these are things that can lead to other things as you're doing research. It's how we found out about the blood types and all of that by just nonstop asking questions, looking at things. The blood type study got started because I needed to find out what percentage of people I could look at as for, because I figured it was going to be something like O positive or A positive, because that's the majority, those two make up like 70%. So I figured it's going to be those two for sure. I never thought it was going to be RH negative ever. I never thought that ever. And when it came out, I was like, wow. And then when we started seeing the mutation eye colors falling as well, it was really strange. So it tells me that how many ever thousands of years ago when this started, a long time ago, most people don't know this, but a long time ago, we were brown haired, brown eyed, brown skin, or black eyed, brown hair, and brown skin. That's who we were. The planet was like that. It wasn't diverse like it is today. Then all of a sudden, for some weird reason, whoever you want to say brought in RH negative. And when that happened, it was a mutation. So it was a mutation blood type, which also kicked off eye color mutations, skin color, hair color. It just changed the way we were. But the weird part about this is no one, I've talked to a lot of hematologists about this, and none of them can tell me why it happened, or why Mother Nature would even consider creating RH negative, since it's a baby killer. And it's a big baby killer. I mean, y'all youngins don't know this, but in the old days, we used to have to get blood tests to get married because we had to know we were compatible.
True. I had to do it.
Yeah, we had to know we were compatible to make sure that the child wouldn't be born still.
Because I am RH negative.
Yeah, and then somebody invented the RH. I mean, the antigen D gene came from a gentleman in Australia, and now you can get a shot. But why would Mother Nature create this, especially so far back? And so why would it want to kill babies? Was it kind of like trying to cull the population even when there was no population on the planet? I mean, you go back 40, 50, 100,000 years, the population's under 2-3 million. So it's a big planet. What's 3 million? I mean, there's more than that in most cities. So what would have caused it, and why would it cause it? And then we find out, even though it is a baby killer, it's the purest form of blood known to man, and it's the universal donor.
Mm-hmm.
So did who knew this? How did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Something, either Mother Nature or something, decided to intervene and change us. And there's a weirdness because Rh positive people have 2% Rhesus monkey gene, Rh negative people do not. And they have
Yep.
distinctively different personalities. If you know people who are Rh positive, Rh negative, if you pay attention, you will notice they have different types of personalities. And you will also notice that green and blue eyed people make up 50% of everybody who works in Hollywood and 50% of the politicians, and only makes up about 6% of the population. So you figure out why
Well,
that is.
I remember reading a research article where they believe that Rh negative people could get HIV, but not full blown AIDS either. That there's certain illnesses that they just don't seem to get, and that was one of them. Like,
Well, they at first they were going around saying, "Oh, negative people couldn't get COVID." No, doctors got on and said, "No, no, no." But they found out that the Rh negative people got COVID far less than anybody else on the planet, and it did far less damage to those people.
hmm,
It's not just that. There's other diseases that blood type seems to be either immune to or
that's what I
works
was
with.
saying.
Yeah,
Like with
so
HIV, they could like we could get HIV, but apparently not AIDS. Like
yeah,
it just
it's
doesn't progress past a certain point. For
so
myself,
that
I rarely
yeah.
get sick, even rarely get sick.
Yeah, so neither.
But when I
There's
do,
some kind of built-in immune factor in there. They still don't know what it is, but it is fact. It's not fiction.
mm-hmm,
So all of these things involved. What does this mean for Earth, and who did it? We always make fun that A is the human aliens, B is the reptilians, and O is
mm-hmm,
the Greys, and that's they introduced it because it's funny. If you go back in history, you'll see a lot of reptilians and a lot of humans all throughout ancient worlds. But you don't see the Greys until just before the emergence of Christ. About 200 years, you start seeing it apply in Egyptian hieroglyphs in different temples, but not until then. There's nowhere they
mm-hmm.
show up anywhere before that. Some people say maybe they were the Nazcans, but when you find out how the Nazcans border their children's heads, so Gray's heads are like this, the human alien's head is like this. So it looks like us in the front, but its head goes back about this much further than ours does. So there's lots of those. You see them in Nazca, but you also see them where else? In Egypt. Remember, they said it was some kind of disease, but only the pharaohs had. Kind of funny that the rule and body, and they were tall and lanky. Sounds a lot like a human alien, a hybrid. So
Mm-hmm.
it looks like these aliens interfered early on, and that's probably why they can't interfere. Because if Graves were probably sent here as a policeman saying, "What the are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know you're not supposed to be doing this. What are you creating slaves? Now you got a race running around because the reptilians interbred with them, so now they're sentient.
It's
What the
believed
hell
that
is
some of
this?"
them were underground that have always been here as
Yeah.
well.
Well,
Um,
a lot of people do think that.
just quickly to get to Kira, AB, the AB blood type, whether it's positive or negative, is the rarest.
But that's
From what,
actually not true. And you want to
well,
know why?
anything I've read says it's
No,
true.
no, listen. I'm going to tell you why it's not true. AB negative and AB positive can take O negative as a donor, but O
Right.
negative cannot take anything but O negative. So
That's right.
technically, it is the rarest form of blood because 1.5 and 7 makes what? 8.5%.
Mm,
But 7% is still just 7%. So AB and AB negative are 1.5% of the world's population, but they can take O negative, which is 7%. So
okay,
that
so
makes them 8.5.
let's look at the O negative from any
They're
also
evil
people I
bastards.
know who are O negative. So I can't speak for everybody, just some of the research that I have studied, and from people who I know who are O negative,
They're
very
evil.
sickly. Very sickly. They've had a lot of like the only thing that makes them rare is the fact that they can be, they can give their blood, but many of them are very sickly. I mean, they get something and they're down all the time. My grandfather was an O negative. I've had friends who are O negatives, family members who are O negative, and compared to those of us who are not, because I'm A negative, and I don't hardly ever get sick, but they are sick often. Headaches, anxiety, depression, like they just seem to be susceptible to everything.
Well, what we've learned about the negatives anyway is that it's a weird thing. So either half of them are like get great health and half of them get
Mm,
crappy health.
right.
But O negative still outlives anybody else. So it's a weird thing. It's hard to understand. So what I found over years is a lot of O negative people are really healthy, just like A negative and B
Mm,
negative are really, really healthy. but about half the other population is not.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem to be a middle ground like there is with positives. There seems to be a middle ground. Some are healthy, some are kind of, and some are bad. But with the negative people, it's not like that. It's either you're really good or you're really bad.
Right.
I don't know why. It's weird like that. What is my son? My son is he's O blood, and he gets his Rh factor from his mother, which is positive, so he's O positive. But his daddy is not. His daddy's also O because he has to be O because you have to be the father's blood type, but you don't have to be the Rh factor. Yes, it's a little weird, but so you have to be whatever the father's blood type is, but not the Rh factor. So just because you're maybe A negative, your son has to be A, but he could still be A positive as long as somebody in the family line was positive, or the father was positive, or So anyway, I learned more about blood than I ever cared to know. I spent years with these hematologists working. There's a whole section on the ICAR site about it. I mean, we even got it to where what's great about here's one for y'all. So everybody knows we got a reptilian section in our brain, right? So it's just strange enough to know we have that. And without that section, we're little whiny wimps. And it's not just that, we're less intelligent without it. So it's something that we have to have. But here's something weird for y'all. So most of the world is, when you look at blood types, it's 36% this, 35% this, 8% this, 10% this, 12% that. Except for Central and South America, which is 98% O. Now that's unheard of. That's not even, nobody can even figure out how it happened. 98%, only 2% of their population is other than O. I don't know. And I asked this hematologist, but he said no one knows, Joe. He said no one knows how it happened. They said maybe when they came over, those families were just O, and they just spread from them groups. He said, but I don't think that's what it is. They really think it's something else. They think there's some kind of intervention, but nobody knows what kind. If you dream about alien craft on a regular basis, Kendall, you're probably been taken.
There we go. Wayne says primitive people who may have witnessed a craft coming from the sky could easily see these beings that emerged from a craft that truly couldn't be understood, would see these beings as gods. Maybe that's things that came from sky was referred to as heaven. 100%.
Well, in the Mesoamerican and the Native American, you can see it more than you do in the Europeans for some reason, or even in the Middle East. But the Mesoamericans, you really see this a lot. They talk about these gods from the sky that intervene. Kublai Khan, there's a bunch of them actually, but they talk about this. And the Nazcans built great lines that can only be seen from high up in space, high up in the atmosphere to see them completely. They boarded their children to look like their gods, which coincidentally looks like a human alien.
And some of those aliens were found in caves in Nazca. If you remember, we covered that.
And then we've got his brother, which y'all can't see at the moment. The alien skull, Star Child skull. Now this isn't a real one. This is just a
replica.
Plastic. So, but I met Lloyd Pye in a little Taiwan diner in a place called Metairie, Louisiana, outside of New Orleans. We all met, and he brought the skull with him. So he brought a replica, and he brought the real one. He didn't tell me he brought the real one until later, but he brought a replica. It was wicked looking, and it was very, very light, and we were talking about it. He said, well, he said, Joe, you look like you can be trusted. He said, so he takes this other bag, and he hands me this skull. So I pick it up. This skull is about yay bigger. It's like twice the size of this one, twice the size of a human brain easily, all the way around, maybe 3 times. I picked this thing up. It is light like a feather light. So he shows me, we're looking inside, there's little pockets of air all strewn out through this thing. It's a whole different design than our skull. It's entirely different. So this thing's been tested many times over the years. It always comes back. Part of it is human, but they don't know what the other part is. So it was a hybrid of some kind. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it was alien, because there's been, which we don't like to admit, but there's been several offshoots of man, like Neanderthal, but there's been other ones besides that. And it could be just some weird hybrid. But they said whatever where its frontal lobe and all was, it said it would have been much more intelligent than any of us. But it was killed as a child, and the mother was killed with it. They know that much, but nobody knows what it was, where it came from, or who killed it, or who it belonged to, what tribe it belonged to. But there's lots of weirdnesses like that in South America. There's a whole group of people down there that actually have a different skull than the rest of us on the planet do. So it seems like the aliens in the old days used to intervene. They used to get involved.
But that's what I'm saying.
but
It
they don't
shows
anymore.
ancient cultures all over the world talk about intervention, shared technology, shared knowledge. The Gnostics, were well aware of the beings from the sky. This is
And
all
but
something that they were
I can
comfortable with,
even give
unlike
you,
now.
I can even give you the year it stopped. That's how easy. That's how easily this can be tracked. I can even give you the year it stopped.
Mm,
It was stopped with the birth of Christ. The reptilians went from being a loved and revered thing and the bringer of life around the whole world to the enemy.
mm-hmm.
So if you look at Mesoamerica or anything, even Egyptian stuff, prior to the birth of Christ, it was 2,000 years ago, they were revered. The reptilians were revered. If you look at the reptilians today, they're hated. They have never done us anything, so why they are now? What changed? The only thing we know of changed was the birth of Christ,
Mm.
and it's about the same time the Greys showed up.
Now, here's a good point. I wanted to bring that up because with the Book of Enoch, for example, Enoch with his feet firmly planted upon the ground walked with the angel. The angel showed Enoch the kingdom of heaven in the palm of his hand, which we know sounds a lot like showing somewhere where you live in the picture library of your book,
Mm-hmm.
sharing images where you live, misunderstood technology. Um, Good night, Alex. Thanks for tuning in. Happy
Alex,
slumber.
rest,
um,
Alex, peace, brother. Sorry, go ahead.
so you know what? Like it does sound like a lot of misunderstood technology for sure. Quickly, Mary. So my question on alien crafts and dreams is answered. I'm not alone. I say you're not alone. Just
I say you're
saying.
not alone too.
That's it, Alex.
I lost an extremely high paying job because one afternoon talking with one of my sub managers, I said it's possible that Jesus was an astronaut. It cost me big bonus. Well, they ended up giving me my bonus anyway, but it cost me my job, which these people loved me. They didn't want me going anywhere, but they were very, very, very religious. They had
Mm,
adopted 10 kids. They went to retreats every weekend. It was my bad for saying it. And as soon as I said it, whoever it was one of the managers ran right to the owners and told them.
mm,
And I just got a raise 2 days earlier. I'm not kidding you, 2 days earlier. So the wife of one of the owners, the chain, came in and said, "Joe, we love you. You've done us a great job. You've turned these stores around, but we just don't see you going forward with us."
mm.
She
It's
said,
tough.
"Yeah."
It's
They
tough.
gave me a great severance package. I should have sued them for it. I really should have, but it was my own stupidity. So, but they gave me a great severance package. Still to this day, if you call them, they give me a great recommendation.
At the end of the day, religion is religion. A faith system is a faith system. Some people have, they're really hardcore about it. I mean, wars have been waged over religious belief systems.
Yes.
That's just the way of the world. I mean, we see it
See
happening all the time.
that's a good point. One of my things always have been a sore spot with me with all three of the major religions, which is the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, is that in every one of their religions they kill millions of people.
Mm.
So I just can't see an omnipotent super being God being okay with that. I just can't see it. And if the God
Is it
truly
called down
existed,
to the belief system of free will?
yeah, but it's not exactly that. I mean, but if I was a creator and I was watching in my name millions of people being killed, I'd have to stop it. I'd have to say no,
Mm.
this is not going to happen.
Hmm.
Either I would either just downplay the religion or come in and tell people, look, this is how it's going to be. But
Mm.
you can't. People tell me all the time, free choice this, free choice that. Yeah, well, free choice is fine. So let me tell you, free choice. I give you free choice. You want to shoot me with your gun or not? No, I don't think that's a good idea.
No, that's not my
Uh,
choice. No,
so
no,
it's
no,
it's just
no.
a tough thing.
I
Can't
think
even.
I think we need to you know maybe look at the fact that we'll go off into a different direction a little bit and sign of the times. I think right now,
Boy, that's a understatement, Ron. I'm sorry, go ahead.
sign of the times. So our people, because let's face it, there were UFO sightings going back. We see it in hieroglyphs, we see it in paintings, we see it everywhere. And things changed. Cultures went from being comfortable with extraterrestrial races to being not comfortable with it. Um, but I find now, and just I want to go back to the comment you made when you held up your phone and say, why are we not getting more? Um, but people seem to be having experiences. Do you think they are just reporting more experiences because they're more knowledgeable, they feel more comfortable about it?
Actually, the
Or do
amount of
you think,
experiences are down. I was talking with
or,
some. I was talking with two big groups the other day. Their amount of
right,
people writing in about being contacted is actually down,
right.
and that's kind of bothered me too. I'm kind of wondering why the shift. Ours is about the same. It's we get X amount a year, and that's what we've been seeing pretty much X amount a year. But everybody else I've talked to said they've dropped 15, 20%. Maybe it's because the Z Geners are scared to talk about it.
I
And
don't know. I think people are awakening. I think people are becoming more receptive to it. As I mean, from the guests that I've had on the show or people who I've communicated with, it's almost like we might be, if we could take out the fear factor that the governments or the military are trying to raise these flags. It's not like I don't understand the concern with national security and things like that. I do. That's not. I want to veer away from that. But I think if we could take that fear out of the equation, I think people are starting to be a little bit more relaxed about it. Like they're just sort of like, it's like we realize there's something more there. We're evolving, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And I find that with people who are touched by I hate to say the word paranormal, but everybody else, nope, they're still ignorant.
Mhm.
They're still ignorant. When you, if you, I mean, look at our look at the U.S. government. So they're going to go study YAP. Okay, first off, why are you going to call it unidentified aerial phenomena? Because YAP is just sounds stupid. Um, I mean, UFO is bad enough, but YAP just sounds ignorant. So, and then our government's conclusion is there's all this tons of footage that the U.S. government's got, and the British government's got, and the French government's got, and the Mexico government's got, and the Canadians government. Oh, it's not alien. Well, what the hell is it? If it's
It's
not
them.
alien, then you must know what it is. I mean, if you're
And it's
telling me
reverse
it's not
technology.
alien, then what is it? Maybe it's not even reverse technology. I've learned something about our government a long time ago. They use this a lot to hide projects they're working on. Stevensville is a
Black ops.
perfect case. Stevensville was an Aurora craft. We know for a fact now it was. They still say it was some type of UFO, and MUFON helps them with it. MUFON's just as guilty as they are
Mm.
because we investigated. It took all of what 5 hours to find out that it had rivets on it and it was chase planes with it. MUFON did like a 10-day investigation, didn't find out any of that, or whoever's in charge didn't want to announce it. But that's a
Maybe
perfect
they're looking
example.
for
They
what
said,
they.
oh, they said it was a UFO. So nobody
Mm.
paid any more attention to it. The news ain't going to care. But now, if somebody would have said, oh, it looked like it was ours and it was a Aurora craft, the media would have been all over it.
Right.
And wait, what's even worse than that is there was an F-16 flying, a group of a flight of F-16, which is about 12. And this thing was headed for George Bush's ranch while he was president. And no one seemed to even worry about it.
Yeah.
And wait, it was in a no-fly zone, not even 2 miles from two nuclear power plants or two nuclear reactors.
Right.
This is a
Right. Right.
complete no-fly zone. We'll shoot you down for flying a plane that close to a nuclear reactor, but nobody even seemed to care. Stevensville, there's a reactor. I mean, wow, it's like 2 miles away from where this happened, maybe three. We went to drive and check it. As a matter of fact, I even got a tour of the place. I told
Mhm.
them what I was doing there, and they said, "You want a tour?" I'm like, "Sure, man."
Yeah.
So, uh,
So so that's what I'm saying. Maybe a lot of what we see in the skies, it's
a lot of
us.
what we see is us.
It's
So
us.
that's why it's so important when I tell people when they want to get in the field, it's so important to start back 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. And the reason why is I think the earliest flight was like 18 something when somebody invented the hot air balloon. But before then, there should be nothing flying in the sky. Now, there's lots of religious pictures where you see people flying in craft in the skies. There's lots of other
Mm.
accounts like the mayor of London talking about these things, these orb things that came floating to us through his town that had people in it. And there was an artist that drew it, but it wasn't not just him too. Over 10,000 people reported seeing it. It made the London paper at the time.
You and I have done article. We're going to have to do a show specifically on this. Do you remember when we touched on airships that went back into the 1500s? That these were old wooden boats, and people were dropping down from them. They were in the sky. And then we're going back to medieval times, and people are like, what the heck is that? Do you remember where it was that small town and a guy just dropped in and their hook line hooked onto a church door? Like,
Yes, but
like,
was that a memory and not a real thing? That's a
or
real
was it
occur.
dimensional?
It could have been dimensional too. It could have been any of
But the
those.
thing is it was still something in the sky that was witnessed by many people.
But there are tons of discs flying around. I mean, there's a war. It was in the Middle East, It's one of my favorite ones. The siege had been going on for 3 years, and then one day, out of the blue, this shield-looking thing comes floating across the sky, floats up to the gate. A blue beam comes down, blows the gate to shit and back. And what's great about this story is both the enemies and the conquered talked about it.
Oh, is this Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yeah, I can't remember. It's written
Sodom
down
and
somewhere.
Gomorrah.
But they said
Religious.
both people said the same thing. A
Yeah.
flying shield came up and blew the gates open. And that was the end of that. Now, okay, first off, there was nothing flying back in the sky back then.
No.
And we're talking about some kind of really advanced technology when a blue beam of light comes down and blows something apart.
Yes.
We still can't do that
Right.
today. But they're not even the only ones. The Sumerians talk about it. I seen Mary Area had posted about things in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. There's lots of stuff that suggests UFOs, but there's also some weird stuff in the hieroglyphs that suggests that somebody had visited the future. There was pictures of helicopters and jet planes and stuff like that. But you got to be careful because one of those hieroglyphs was a hoax, but one of them was real.
That was Seti's tomb, I think, in Egypt.
So, I mean, there's some really advanced stuff. And then it looks like the Egyptians had a command of electricity of some sort because there's many drawings of these tube-looking things that are about this long and they're this big. And they put an eel in them, but they always have a cord going from it and they made light. So they had the eel there like an electric eel showing you it made light. But I think it was some type of electricity that somebody figured out how to make.
Well, technology.
And then, how do they breathe in all of these places?
That's what I'm saying. Technology was taught. It was shared. We seem to be a lot more relaxed with things back then than we are even today. It's almost like we need to go back, do like full.
Well, because God's visiting back then wasn't a big deal. God's visiting today is a big deal. Because first off, most of us are not going to think it's God's, and 5 billion of us are going to be going, "What the hell was that? Who are you, and why are you on our planet?" And we're going to want answers, and then our governments are going to freak out because they can't give us answers.
Well, I think I think that answers the question. Maybe it was more accepted, and maybe an ET came and interacted more because we didn't have the technology that could destroy them, that could destroy the planet. I mean, they still fought amongst one another. You had different civilizations and tribes in fighting things like that, much like today, but they couldn't do damage on a planetary scale that we know of, because let's face it, how many extinctions have we gotten into? How many shows on Grey Zone did we do that talked about ancient technology and out of place artifacts that were found going back 300 million years ago?
Parts are very strange, people. There's stuff that we find from time to time that no one can explain how it got there. Right. Anytime you find something way down in the bottom of coal, embedded in a coal, it's several million years old. I mean, we didn't have cogs and stuff back then unless there was somebody we didn't know about.
We're like, what, third, fourth kick at the can?
I think we're 6th, if I remember right.
There you go. And you look at Hamilton. When Hamilton White was on the show last year, he basically showed an artifact that he had that was given to him back in the 70s, which was, in fact, a Baghdad battery. There was one that was found somewhere along the line. It disappeared. He's got one. And Men in Black showed up.
Yeah, because they want to know what the hell it is. Yeah, because they want to know what the hell it is. They just
go check out the archive, guys. It's amazing. He shows it.
Yeah, things like that. They want to know what it is because they don't know. Yeah. And that's another thing. The government's not really. They don't really know much about aliens. They want you to think they do, but they don't. They wouldn't be abducting people if they did. There would be no reason for military abductions if the governments really knew what was going on, but they don't. Governments are just as dumb as the rest of us. The aliens have no need to talk to the government. They don't want to talk to our government. They have no need to. I think they learned the lesson with the Germans. There does seem to be, at the turn of the last century, century before last, there does seem to be some type of contact around 1900 in Germany. It looks like they contacted them and gave them advanced technologies because the Germans spent from, 1911 to 1916 building flying saucers. Never got any of them to work, but they did. And then again, when Hitler took over, they were doing them yet again. And you have to remember, at the turn of that century, they were by far the most advanced country in the world. Not the United States, not Canada, not anybody. They were by far the most advanced. And they were even the most advanced until the end of World War II. So anytime if any race was going to come visit the most advanced, it wasn't going to be us. It was going to be them. And a lot of the research they do is weird because, when you hear about things with the aliens, about telepathic abilities and empathic abilities and twin abilities, it's strange. All of a sudden, out of the blue, the Germans decided, I think in 1940 or 1939, to start taking people and checking these abilities out.
Mm-hmm.
They knew the abilities were real. And even the U.S. government has these organizations that work with these abilities now. So, and that, y'all can look that up for yourself. The Air Force and the Navy both have a telepath program. They closed the remote viewing program for a telepath program instead.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know why they closed it. So, actually, I talked with Ed Dames about it. Actually, I think it was we were in Coast to Coast together, and we talked about it. But he said, and I had told George in the beginning, I felt like telepaths have a much clearer view than a remote viewer does. So remote viewers can pinpoint locations and buildings and missiles and stuff like that. But telepaths can also find the missile, but they can also watch the guy punch in the code or read the code and stuff like that, which is something the remote viewers can't. So they became much more used. Remember, most telepaths can see through someone else's eyes. So whatever that individual is seeing, they're seeing. So, and they also have the ability to read their mind. So a lot of stuff can be gleaned that way.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I'm sure we've developed ways to block it and stuff like that. And we do know when they do military abductions, they use a mix of sodium anethol, sodium pentothal, and hypnosis. But they also use a hypnosis someone who has telepathy. So they do a low telepathy scan along with the hypnosis and those two drugs. And look, you give them your baby. I'm not shitting you. You'll give them your baby. I can do all of it, and trust me, you'll give them your baby. It's so when they get through with you, you just whatever they put there is what you think's going on. And generally, it's some stupid memory you had to blow out. Something happened.
But
I mean, it's
that's
just
the problem too. So all of these abductions or contact happens. Does ET really want to scrub your memory, or are we talking
no.
military
That's the
abduction? Because
government.
they want to scrub your
ET
memories.
don't do it anyway. ET loops your memories. ET's found out recently, about a decade ago, we found out that ET reacts to abduction researchers, which is weird because they don't react to UFO researchers like they don't care. But what
Mm-hmm.
happened was, okay, in the old days, classic things, trigger memories like hoot owls and deers and stuff like that, and missing time. Starting around 1998, we started seeing way less cases with missing time. Abductions going away. We were like, what the hell is going on? And then we realized something, that there is no such thing as a cover memory. They were trigger memories.
Mm.
So what the ET does, and this is only for people who have shown some kind of interest, they'll give you like a picture of the ship, or they'll show you this or show you that, something that will make you try to figure out, like a weird deer, an owl, big owl standing in your window. It makes you start picking it apart so you can figure out what it is. But that's only for people who have showed interest and have not panicked or freaked out. So they allow you to work it out till you figure out what it is. It's a great program the way it works. But they use loop memories when they don't want you to do anything. And loop memory is something like, you drive to the store every day, you drive to school every day, you drive to work every day, you vacuum your house, whatever you do on a regular basis that you don't think about. It's something that you just don't think about. It's a memory that it's just something,
It's
I'm cleaning my
routine. It's just
house.
something that comes natural.
Anything
Right.
that you do that you're not going to question.
Right.
That's what they do. So when they take you, they just loop that memory. So that's what you think happened in that time. So you don't know any better unless something weird happens. And every now and then something weird happens. Somebody will come in when you were supposed to be there and you're not. Or you may be going to pick up something every day, like the pregnant lady used to stop and get. This is hilarious. This woman's 8 months, 7 months pregnant. She used to stop every morning and get a coney dog, chili, cheese, and onion every morning. Actually, since she was 6 months, she'd get it. I'm like, you're going to kill that damn baby. I knew this woman. Anyway, long story short, a couple of months, about a year after she had the baby and all, and baby's healthy and great. She calls me up and she said, "Oh, you know what? I stopped and got me a chili coney dog this morning. It was fabulous." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, the only problem is the store's been closed for 6 months." So that's just one of them things they effed up. They didn't realize, they don't know the store's closed, so they just used a memory that she's fond of, that she used a lot, and she remembered. And sometimes they make boo-boos. Aliens aren't perfect.
So then the brain scrubbing, that's a MALAB.
That's MILAB, yeah. Because the government don't know how to give you, they're generally sloppy. That's why they started using drugs and an empath. Empath or a telepath is so that they could correct the way, because a telepath can get in your head while they're doing the memory and see how your brain's reacting to it. So they can adjust it as they go. So it makes it a lot harder for you to remember now. They can be broke. They're not that hard to break, but you have to know they're there. So And I'll tell you this: if anybody's thinking about getting hypnotized, know this: once the cat's out of the box, there's no putting it back in. Whatever it is, and a lot of times it's not going to turn out to be abduction. It could be some type of molestation. It could be some kind of beating. It could be a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
It could be some fear, like your dad died or something. It could be anything. It
So
doesn't always have to be alien.
do you think that we can substitute some of those memories ourselves to mask trauma?
Yeah, because what would you? So a really horrible trauma that you don't want to
Yeah.
remember anymore. So you just make an alien abduction, which is another horrible trauma, but it's not near as horrible as the one you're masking. And unfortunately,
Right.
that happens about 40% of the time. And
Right.
it's sad, and there's nothing we can do about it. We're not psychiatrists, so all we can do is refer you to someone, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what you have to do. But again, once it's out the box, it's out of the box. You're going to have to deal with it. Now, whatever it is, you're going to have to face it and deal
Mm-hmm.
with it. And it's the same thing. Even when you find that it is an alien
Hi, Abby.
abduction, at that point, you're still going to have to deal with it. You know,
Well,
Mary, when you were talking about the Egyptian hieroglyphs, here's one for you. The Dogon talk about a flying saucer that came to their world, landed, then went into the water, and then reptilians came walking out and gave them all their secrets, told them about the dog star and how
mm-hmm.
blood circulates. It's a great, you ought to read it, but it's a great story. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. Or check out the Gray Zone show when it gets to Roku, because
Yes, it's
we
on there
did
too.
we covered that on a couple of different segments in great detail. It's really fascinating. My thing is when that, if you're getting your memories scrubbed, after a while, how much of it you actually going to have left?
Okay, that's another thing. They're not going to do it that often because
It doesn't take that much.
first off, it's your mouth that got you in trouble. Okay, and I tell this to contactees all the time. You know, once you start going public, you know, if you start saying, like you've seen certain parts of the ship, or you've been allowed to interface with this part of the ship or that part of the ship, or you've had downloads or things like that, anything that they might be interested in, they're going to come get your ass. That's as simple as it
but in the same respect, you're the one that said, go public, protect yourself. It's like,
No, actually, I
okay,
don't tell people that.
all
I
right.
tell people all the time,
Oh, you
keep it in your
certainly told
family.
me that.
Well, because you're already public, doofus. For us,
What? That shouldn't matter. It's a private
so
experience.
listen, for all of us, for people like Michelle and I, we have to be public because, it's the only thing that keeps us safe. And since we're regularly on the radio and TV, it keeps us even safer, because if something weird goes on, our followers and friends are going to be like, well, wait a minute, that's real out of character for them. Or if we start acting weird, or they'll notice it. So for us, it's important. But for people that are not on the radar, the best thing for you to do is not get on the radar. I know a lot of people think they're going to get famous by this, and you know what? You might, but you may pay for it in spades if you do. So just keep that in the back of your head.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff that goes on. There's a lot of stuff
Right.
associated with this. I tell people all the time, be careful what you wish for.
Okay, Tamara we will pick this up. Tamara is giving me the remind because Bubbles isn't here. So she's kind of like the third host. So for anybody who's just tuning in, you are tuning into the Outer Realm, and you are listening to
Can you get it in without spilling it?
my guest host, Joe Montaldo, and we are talking about everything from alien abductions. We're talking about ancient aliens. We're talking about different, reverse technology. We're talking about all kinds of things. So if you have questions, pop on into one of the 8 chat rooms and just put your questions or your comments, and we're trying to address everything. But again, remember, we've got 8 chat rooms. It's like a big super highway coming down to one lane. So you just have to be patient with us. We're doing our best. Now, you are, of course, we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network.
Thank you,
UFO
Ron.
Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people at Folgers Coffee. We're so grateful to have them. They've been with us since day one, and we appreciate the faith you've put in us. We love you. Obviously, our listeners love you. Our guests love you. So thank you. Also, Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, for his contribution of his time, for his music and his voice for our intro and outro. And of course, Steve McGinnis, who is the man behind the artwork here on the Outer Realm. So for those just tuning in, it is not too late to get into the chat room and get your questions and comments in. And Tamara, thank you for the remind.
Ron posted the first air balloon was 1783. So there you go. Should be nothing flying in the sky before that, and not much after that. And before anybody writes to me about the Texas airship, the Texas airship was after this date. It was like 18. I have to go look it up, but it was in the 1800s. And well, a lot of people said it was the U.S.'s attempt to build a dirigible. I have no idea. I wasn't there. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it is interesting, and there has been radiation found in the areas. And Jimmy, I talked about that last night. Yes, about the
wrong chat room, Jimmy.
No, he started. Well, no, he's actually been bitching at me for a little while now about the cattle mutilations. You know what? I actually told a friend of mine today, y'all should write to Carlson Tucker and tell him what really happened instead of BS stories he learned about. It has nothing to do with aliens. Cattle mutilations have nothing to do with aliens. Just nothing.
There we go.
That's right.
There we go. So,
yes, what's happening down here?
Hello. So yes, Mary says, I don't remember much before the age of 7. It was about the time I swear I was taken to this crop circle, again roughly 75. So would that be a memory wipe? If you were taken by a military, I've taken to asking questions now when I work with people.
They take Michelle all the time. It confuses me because I'll tell her something and I'll see her again. I say, remember? She's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean, no? And I see her again. She's like, no. I'm like, oh my God. First, I thought she was going senile, but now I know what it is.
They take care of me.
Bob the Great goes and visits her
They take care of me.
Time. I don't even know what they're doing to poor Wayne, but they regularly taking her. And I was like, oh my God.
Great experiences.
She said something about Bob, and since then he's like, oh, hey, baby, how you doing? You come ride?
Yeah, whatever.
What can I tell you? You know, Gray's a little pervert. What can I say?
I've taken to asking people now who come to me for assistance and think they've got maybe demonic things going on. They're actually quite similar when you start looking at things like sleep paralysis or different experiences like balls of light or hearing certain sounds or smells. Believe it or not, they're actually quite similar. But I have taken to asking people if they have any military connections, like family members in the military. Do they have, and you'd be surprised how many people say yes. In fact, I was in contact with a woman who we've been helping for about 2 years. And she goes, oh yes, my uncle worked in Roswell. 51. When things went down in Roswell, my uncle was a part of that. I'm like, oh, gee, I wonder why you're having all these experiences, because they were seeing grays.
Well, grays are friendly. They love you. Mary, you should be scared of sleep paralysis. No, actually, I'm glad you said that, because if I had $1 for every abductee/contactee that spent time in an orphanage in Canada, not in the United States, by the way, this is a Canadian thing, right? Only a Canadian thing, I could retire. I'm not kidding you. It started out with a good friend of mine. She went under the name Pern Cougar. We're not going to get into why or any of that stuff, but she was one of our Canadian directors. She came from one. So, and then a couple of people had come in the room, and we've always had a lot of Canadians. We're friends with a lot of Canadians, and we had about a dozen in 2 weeks come in the room that would come from Orange. I'm like, what the hell? It was almost like somebody dumped it into my plate. So I said, Cougar, why don't you take a look, get a couple people, and take a look and see what we can find. So in less than 3 weeks, they found 750 contactees that had spent time in orbit in less than 3 weeks. It freaked me out. So there was another tie to it, though. So we couldn't figure out how they got there. Guess who put them there? The U.S. government. You figure that one out. No, they had the paperwork and everything. A lot of them still had the paperwork. So somehow
interesting.
They were in the U.S. I don't know if they were Canadians, or if they were Americans, or if they were both, but somehow or another, the U.S. shipped them to different orphanages in Canada. Not all of them were like that, but about half were. It was freaky weird. Yeah, even today, it's an ongoing project.
Orphanages.
It's still an ongoing project today. Most of all the ICAR's things are ongoing projects. We'll never quit until, even when I die, other people will just take it.
Tell them how to get to it so they know, because you mentioned it, but they don't know. Not everybody knows what it is.
It's the International Community of Alien Research. It's ICAR1.com. There'll be stuff like my arguments with Kathleen Margarine about the Betty and Barney Hill case, because they had it totally wrong and I rewrote it. There'll be cases like the cattle mutilations and stuff like that. It's no one should ever let me into the field, because originally I was a debunker. I was like, no, you people are on crack. Nobody's being abducted by aliens. Aliens are not real. I was just like when I was 20, and over the years I learned, of course, I was wrong. But it's just weird how things just get dumped into my lap. I don't know how to explain it. All of this started because when I was like 20, everybody and their mama kept telling me they had been. I'm not, uh, you know, my dentist told me. A good friend of mine who was a politician at the time, came and told me one day had been taken. Actually, in the beginning, I thought they were effing with me. Every pilot I worked with in the Navy, which was 4 different squadrons, all told me the same thing. They had seen an alien craft. And they did not call it a UFO. They called it an alien craft. They didn't see it on the HUD or the app. They seen the damn thing flying where they could almost reach out and touch it. Um, they said it just performed move. It took till now for the Foo Fighters, for us to even get close to the maneuvers the Foo Fighters did. It took us to now, 100 years later almost, or 80, 86 years later almost, to invent drones that can kind of do what the Foo Fighters done. We still have nothing that can move as fast as they do today, and we have nothing as big as them that can make the performance moves that they did in World War II. You figure it out.
Right.
And every person that had a pilot, every Army, every Navy, every Air Force that had pilots flying, whether it was us, whether it was the Brits, whether it was the Germans, whether it was the Russians, whether it was the English, it didn't matter who it was, the Japan, it didn't matter. They all seen them. All of them. And no one could claim them because no one knew what the hell they were. Everybody else thought it was somebody else's stuff.
I will get back to everybody.
15%, Tam.
15%. Okay. Okay, back to Ron. Does regression reveal evidence of past lives? I would say yes, along with abductions.
Okay,
Joe?
don't get me started on the past live thing.
Let's ask Joe.
Don't get me started on the past live thing. So I got a whole nother scenario for y'all.
That's a whole other show.
So listen, there's a multiverse, right? Which means there's one of you in every multiverse. Okay, so every dimension, every universe, there's one of you in it. Well, you might be blonde haired, blue eyed, whatever. It doesn't matter. You may be taller, you may be shorter, you may be fatter, you may be skinny, you may be a murderer, you may be a great cook. It's just each one is different. Whatever thing that can happen to you will happen, and it will be in every dimension. But they're all going on at the same time. So what do you need reincarnation for? If everything's existing in one time, when you all die, you'll just snap back together into one being, and you've lived every possible life there is. So why would you need that? It's a hard one because we do know the multiverse is real. So how can you have that and have reincarnation? That's a tough one. And I haven't decided on either one, by the way. I just like saying it because it sounds good.
Different. Again, we've done shows on the Gray Zone on the multiverse and different, time travel and time slips and things of that nature. So, anything is possible. And I agree with Mary. The ones who defy the most are the first ones who are the greatest believers. Is it true birthmarks are a bodily residual of how you died in a past life?
I hope not, because I got a bunch of them damn things.
Got littered. Yeah,
I'm just saying, I got one here. I got one on my neck that was this long. They must have hung me in my last one.
Oh no!
Look, I tell this again, like I said earlier in the show, believe whatever makes you feel as snug as a bug in the rug, because that's what's important. I pick on people because there is a multiverse, and it is possible that we're living every life at one time in one instant. So, somewhere I'm way sexier than I am now. Somewhere I have wings. Somewhere I'm axe murderer. Somewhere I have 10 wives. Somewhere I have 10 husbands. The point being is whatever can possibly exist, and this is science, by the way, you're going to experience, which actually kind of scares me a little bit because there's a lot of bad shit in the universe that I do not want to experience. But somewhere one of me is experiencing that. I guess I'm one of the luckier ones. But when you all die, you all come back to one being. So you've lived every possible life at one time. And then when you come back, you're either an enlightened being or an insane being. I don't know which one. I guess it's the way you deal with all of this stuff. But then, so what do you need reincarnation for if that's how the universe works? I think as we learn more, some of the old things we used to believe are going to have to be changed. Because as we learn more about the universe, some of the stuff that we think now just doesn't fit.
Well, it's conditioning.
Universe, and it is conditioning.
I think it's conditioning, and we've evolved, I think, even with technology. So deja vu, I like this question, Ron. Is deja vu an experience of a past life or just a dimensional experience?
For me, deja vu usually is something from the future. It's like precog.
Okay,
When I
interesting.
usually have, and sometimes because I'm a dumbass, I don't always pay attention to it. Well, no, really, throughout my
Remember,
life,
I didn't
I've
say that
always,
one.
yeah, well, I did, but
I have to do
throughout
the
my life,
dumbass thing holding up a certain
no,
product
no,
that shouldn't be
but
happening.
throughout my life, I've had a lot of deja vu throughout my life, and
Mm,
most of the
me,
times
me too.
it's a
Yep.
precog. It's something
Mm.
that's going to happen, and I should be watching for it. But sometimes I'm like, come on, this is BS, and then it happens, and I'm like, oh
But sometimes
shit.
it's a place that you've been to before, and
Yes, sometimes it is.
it's just
It's
like that,
it's it's
glitch.
it's
It's like a
it's
glitch in the matrix.
it's like, like when people sometimes tell me they know when aliens are coming because they smell cinnamon or they smell ozone. There's certain smells they smell,
Ozone's a big one for some people,
and yeah, it is a big one. And
but
sometimes
that's what
after,
people who claim to have demonic experiences smell like an ozone, sulfur.
yes, because if a gray came to your
Anyhow,
house
there's
in the middle of the
that
night and dragged you around,
crossover.
you'd think it was a damn demonic experience
I know,
too.
but that's what I'm saying. There's that crossover again that we're talking about
That's
with
because
odors and
it's not identified correctly. That's why it's a crossover. See, my
yeah,
problem is paranormal is paranormal. It means
yeah.
anything out of the normal. So ufology and all the ghosts and all that stuff is all lumped under one sun because it's all paranormal. But for me and her, it's not. It's normal. It's
Hmm.
not paranormal. This is stuff we deal with daily. It's stuff we've been dealing with daily our whole lives. And it's
Hmm.
not paranormal is not a good word for people. And you see all these different groups of paranormal, this paranormal, that. You're dumbasses. Okay, this is something you deal with daily, so it's not paranormal. You need to start letting people understand some of this stuff happens on a daily, regular basis. It does not make it paranormal. It makes it a normal event that's happening that we can't explain why it is,
Mm.
and so we mislabel a
So it's just
lot of things.
it's an
An
unexplainable event.
event,
Is all
yes, but
right.
we put the connotations
Okay.
by using that word on it. Hey, look, all
It's been
about different words.
commercialized though, but you have to
It
understand
has,
paranormal itself has become an industry. It's become commercialized. Like, I mean, when I started, I mean, I've been seeing stuff my entire life. I've had experiences my entire life. But, being I will say professionally in the field where I was more active in filming and things like that, um, it's been about like 2 decades, and it was still going strong before that, but now it's become so,
yeah,
sensationalized
so-called
and so
TV.
commercialized. Maybe people have just lost track of what it actually is.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, here's something I wouldn't wish on everybody. Around 10 years old, I used to have these wicked, horrible dreams, and it's one of the ways I learned I learned how to control my dreams because of this. It's one of the things, I started having lucid dreams instead of regular dreams. Just I could dream in color, I could change my dreams. There's just a lot of things I learned about that really helped me through life. But by doing so, I picked up a gift or a curse. So starting around 12, I started seeing people die.
Mm,
Everyone was right, including my
premonition.
dad, including my mom. Every one of them was right on the money,
Right,
right. And the first two or three times you're thinking, well, that was just weird. And I always seen them in threes. It always comes to
right.
me in threes, and it always what happens within after the first, and it's within 2 or 3 years for the rest of them to go. And it's man, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That is not because there's nothing you can do about it. You can tell the
Right.
individual, but it's not going to make any difference. Whatever it is fate. Or if you don't believe in fate, it's something else. But you can see it. I remember when I dreamt about my dad. I remember it was 2 years before he was diagnosed with cancer, and I told my mom you need to go. So she took him in. Of course, he had liver cancer, and then they found out it had spread to his blood, so he had blood cancer. There was nothing they could do for him, especially
Mhm.
back then. They just didn't have. Today it might have been a difference, but it sucks. But the last 8 years, I've been free of it.
Mm,
So I don't know how or why or what it is.
mhm,
Or maybe just
mhm.
nobody I know is dying anytime soon, which is a plus. But the
Um,
dreams, one of the things we teach and we still teach is dream weaving. So if you're single, you're married, or you have somebody a secondhand dream weaving is a nice thing to learn. So you can once you learn how to get into somebody else's head, there's a lot of things you can do. One, you can change their dreams, you can see things, you can go places, you can help them get past things, they can help you get past things. So the reason that we start out with spouses or boyfriends and stuff like that, or girlfriends, is because you can ask in the morning, did you dream about this pink dragon? Or did you dream about this, that, or whatever it is? Could be because a lot of dreams are just stupid, random stuff. And you can ask. If the person looks at you funny and says yes, then you can go on with the rest of it. And what happens is after a while, you can connect with them on their dreams. You can open doors. You can change things for them. If they're having a hard time changing a dream, or if they're being psychic attached, you can actually stop that stuff for them.
Mm-hmm.
So dream weaving is something that, and that all became because I learned how to lucid dream and I learned how to control my own dreams. That
I
was,
love lucid dreaming.
yeah, so that was just another gift that came along, and I
Mm-hmm.
started teaching it to friends of mine and stuff like that, and they use it
But
all the
again, do
time.
you find, like for me, lucid dreaming was huge up until I had children, actually. And then it slowed right down. And now
Yeah, a
it's
lot
once
of
in a
women tell
while.
me that, by the
And I
way.
could do amazing things with lucid, like all
Well,
my
I
dreams.
think I think for women, it's because when they have the children, the brain goes the other way. It says, okay, my feelers are now went
Logic.
out to my kids.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what
That
I'm
makes sense.
connected to now. Yeah.
That
And
would
for
make
men, it's a
sense.
little different. Sometimes they may connect to the kids, but a lot of times they'll just keep going on the same track. But
Right.
dream weaving is a great thing you can do with anybody, and there's no distance too
Hmm.
far or too short.
Right.
You can do it with a friend, and if you don't believe me, once you learn how to do it fairly well, you can set up sleep sessions with friends overseas and dream with
Hmm.
them.
Right.
It's a great thing to learn. It's
Hmm.
also, I'll tell you something else. I shouldn't even bring this up, but if you get good at it, you can dream in your children's dreams. You can help them to control dreams. You can actually teach them how to control their dreams. You can also be there in a nightmare to stop the
Hmm.
bad thing.
Right.
So, and you can show them how they can pop up a sword to slay the dragon, or they can
Hmm.
come up whatever they needed to conquer that dream.
Hmm.
And let me tell you what, conquering dreams is a big thing because I really did until from age. It all started for me. I don't know what it was. I was having these wicked, horrible dreams. So I started replaying in the very beginning. I started replaying episodes of Star Trek through my head, the old Star Trek, the original
Hmm.
series. I would play them through my head, and that would distract me from the dreams. Then I realized I could change the episode of the Star Trek to how I wanted it to fit. So
Hmm.
once I realized that, I let myself go back to dreaming. Of course, the nightmares came back, but then I realized I could control the nightmare. Once I could control it, it was over with. It's not that I don't ever have a nightmare from time to time. I still do.
Right.
And But I control them for the most part. Not always though. If I'm sleeping really, really
Mm.
sound, really, really hard, like I've been out drinking or something like that, it doesn't always work. And
Um,
I'm gonna be
yeah.
honest with people because I want people to know how it is.
Okay, we're going to get to some more questions.
Well,
Uh,
I own a network. We can go as long as we want, man. What are y'all talking about?
So, are so-called paranormal TV series fakes? Now, I imagine some are, like any type
There's a
of
lot of them are
TV
fakes.
show out there. Some are, some are not. I find a lot of the ones that are giving accounts of their stories are not so much because these are people talking about their experiences. I mean, do some of them, do producers sort of embellish things? Yes, absolutely, because that's what's called ratings. I say it all the time. If I had $1 for every time I had to yell out demon out of all the questions I'm asked, and they
Yeah.
keep saying, yeah, but it could be this, right? Yes, I guess so. Okay, so can we say it? Oh, I see. Okay. It's ratings. And
It
unfortunately for the
is
people
ratings.
in front of the camera, 8 times out of 10, they don't have what's called creative control. They don't have any power to do that. I cut back. I've turned down a lot of different TV series for that
And,
reason. I
and you
wasn't
know
in
what?
agreement with what they wanted me to do.
And you know what sucks for y'all is, and Michelle will know this. We will do sometimes 8, 9, 10 hours of stuff they'll ask us, and they'll put like 10 minutes up. You're like, what?
Yeah.
And then it's none of the good stuff. Oh no, it's none of the good stuff. It's whatever they think is good, not what you think is good.
No, no, that ends up on the cutting room floor. But
I'm like, wait a minute, man. Didn't I say this? Didn't I say this? Didn't
it,
I say this? What the is going on here?
I know
I get
it,
aggravated
it
about it.
gets
I
very
really do.
frustrating because people don't realize when you're filming, like at least when you're sitting in the hot seat being interviewed, it's very repetitive. And it's just you go, you go, you go, you go. I could give 5 answers to one question. They're always going to go for the most dramatic. But with investigative shows, again, you can be at a location. Everything you see is the best stuff out of probably 24 to 48 hours, if not more, of filming. Is it faked? Is it embellished? I'm sure some of it is. I mean, I've known friends who have crazy haunted locations throughout the world, and they've had shows come in and say, okay, we're just going to do this or this, where the owner says, no, you're not. This place will stand on its own 2 feet. It doesn't need you helping it. Other shows come in there and the place just gives it up. But even when you're doing a normal investigation, the chances that you're always going to get something is like maybe 15%. You may as well just sit there hunkered down with a good coffee or hot chocolate and just
And come
wait
out of New
because
Orleans, it'll be 100%.
yeah, well, see, some locations deliver. I've had locations like that where I can go in and say definitively, yes, it was a paranormal experience. For example, Hoyabachi Forest. I don't know too many people who, because I do know people who have gone and said, no, we definitely had experiences. I had experiences, my team had experiences,
Maybe
but
out
it
there
doesn't
cooking
mean
some
if we go
steaks.
back, we're going to have an experience. I tend to think we will, but you just don't know. So that's a pretty loaded question. So getting back to the deja vu for a moment, Wayne says, I felt the deja vu is a replay of a life that ended prematurely, and the person is sent back to live the life over. So things seem so familiar right up to the time of a person's death. And he says that because his deja vu ended sometime around the age of 27. Before that, it was a very prevalent experience in his life. Can you maybe give us some insight on that?
Well, I would think when it comes to deja vu, it's going to be for each individual person how it works.
Right.
I've never seen any past lives or anything like that. To be honest with you, it's always been precog for me. But for other people, sometimes it's precog, sometimes it's at the moment. A lot of people have deja vu at the moment, so it's like they're reliving the same moment over again. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like somebody walking over your grave. So a lot of people, it's like a exact same thing you just did, but it replays. So I've noticed over the years. I used to try to put this into a category, but I can't. I would say when it comes to deja vu, there's 4 or 5 different types of deja vu and the way it
Mm-hmm.
works. So that's why I don't down anybody on the way they think about it, because it's probably the way it works for them. If
Right.
you've experienced it more than one time, then you probably have an understanding on how it works for you.
Yes. Like Chris says, for this experience, deja vu is a time slip most of the time.
And see, a lot of people describe it that way. That's what I'm saying. So it seems to vary from person to person. I'm not even sure why. Or maybe what's happened is we've just mislabeled it.
Okay.
Okay, so we've already looked at 5 different what we call deja vu here, but maybe each one is actually should be labeled something different.
Mm-hmm.
So and I don't know which one you would label. I don't see. It's one of the problems with UFOs and paranormal is we get trapped in these labels, and it's hard to work around them a lot of times. And a lot of stuff
That's
we
hard.
call stuff today shouldn't even be called that. It should be something
Mm-hmm.
entirely different. Um,
And it may have a very technical word for it, from like a
but I
science
will do this.
standpoint. It's a
I will
buzzword.
guarantee you if you have a couple of cocktails and you walk around the French Quarter between 2:30 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., you will see something. Just keep
Mm-hmm.
roaming, roam between Jackson Square, back down the side, around the cathedral, back around the backside, and all the way around where the slaves used to be sold and
Mm-hmm.
hung. You're going to see something. I can
There we
guarantee. I've
go.
never gone down there ever that time in the morning that I didn't see something. And usually, and I'll tell you ahead of time, you usually get some creepy feeling like something walking up the back of your neck or someone blowing on your ear. It's a strange feeling, and then it's there. And lots of people have seen stuff down there. A lot of people don't even want to admit it. Matter of fact, I was talking to this group of tourists, and they said, "Oh, what was that? Some kind of reenactment?" I said, 2:30 in the morning. You got to be shitting me, right? Oh no, that had to be a reenactment. I said, no, them a ghost. And they're like, what? I said, do you see them anywhere? Because you can see both ends of the walkway for like a half mile. I said, you see them anywhere? I mean, they weren't big, huge Bella dresses. I mean, I would think you would still see them. So,
Mm-hmm.
teleportation is possible. Even we actually have technology today to teleport. The Brits did it first. They teleported one byte of
I saw
information,
that.
1.5 kilomiles, 1.5 kilometers. Then the Aussies did it for like 3 miles. The U.S. has still not done it yet, but they've been working on this for a while. So the next thing is the next test is going to be to take a box with something in it and transport it 2 or 3 miles and see how it works. Eventually, when I say eventually, it could be 5 years to 500 years at the rate we
Well,
do
the
things.
Philadelphia experiment, that was.
But we will have teleportation. So we won't. See, people ask me about space gates all the time. Why don't we build a space gate? Space gate would be great. Space elevator. I'm sorry. But if we're going to have teleportation in less than 100 years, why is it way waste of money and the
There are
time?
power spots, though, if you just know where they are. They're natural vortexes or portals, and
And we found other ways to send stuff to space. We just won't do it. Los Alamos had been working. Los Alamos took some of the. This tells you how big these lasers were. That Star Wars was. Los Alamos took some of these lasers, and they were taking these big discs about the size of my house with vents in it, and they would shoot the laser up and superheat them and shoot them into space.
mm,
So they learned how they could send stuff in space without using jet engines, but they didn't want to do it for some reason.
hmm
Yeah, no, we didn't want that kind of technology because it would make things cheap.
Ooh.
Sending something to space right now is outrageous expensive. This would make it really cheap.
I say
Uh,
use the natural spot. That's right.
that's right. Send it up there. Send it. Well, the planet. That's the
I don't know.
problem. You
It's
can't.
there.
A
It's
lot of
there.
where the natural spots are in countries we're not allowed in,
But
or we don't have good relationships with.
let's look at it this
It
way
is all about the
also.
money.
Let's look at it this way. Look at when we did the show on time travel. Do you remember that woman who woke
I
up
spent
one
three
day?
weeks out there, Mary. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Woke up one day and all of a sudden she was in a whole other time, and she still has a reward out for anybody who can help her get back to her life. She woke up in a different time in the same apartment that looked
Mm,
different, wearing a different pair of pajamas, and her fiance of 7 years nowhere to be found.
that sounds like a gray or reptilian f up or a human f up.
Well,
See, they pull you out of
yeah,
time now when they do abductions now, and because of the loss of time, they pull you out of time now. So when they put you back,
mm,
they try to put you back like 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after they take
right.
you, so there's no missing time. But they can make boo boos, and we know over the years we've seen lots of boo boos from the Greys, like flopping the two wives out, to the wife in New York and the wife in. I can't even imagine
Why did
when
you
this girl
meaning to
woke up.
the
Yeah,
weird
I can't.
wife
This
swap?
this girl wakes up in California. She looks
Sorry,
over
my bad.
and she sees she's in bed with some guy that's not her husband. So she's screaming. I'm feeling sorry for the guy. She's screaming, kicking, beating on him. He finally gives her the phone because she's going to call the police. And then she calls her number, and her husband answers the phone. He looks over, and there's a woman sleeping next to him that's not her. They flop lies. The Greys
It's like I'm saying, a whole other
they
meaning
just
to
gave the
wife
wrong one.
swapping with
And one of the yeah, I
boundaries.
know. And then one of my favorite ones is this girl in I forgot the name of the city in Japan. Woke up one morning wearing these little pink drawers and this little pink top, and she was freaked out because when she went to bed, she was wearing a t-shirt and drawers. Then she noticed she went to go get redressed because she couldn't figure out how she got dressed like that, and she noticed there was a name and number on the underwear. So she called it. The girl woke. The girl got up, was walking around the house, and she said she gave her a description of her clothes and what she was wearing. So I guess the girl didn't know. She went and looked, and there they were in the basket. And then she freaked out. So under hypnosis, both of them were contacted. Same thing with the two wives. They did a police investigation into the New York and California girls. They actually launched an investigation into it. There was no way, because it was only like 2 hours difference a night. There was no way
Mm,
they could have got a plane there. Just there was no reservations, no nothing. And it was just there. And then there's the two California ladies who had stage 4 cancer and woke up without it. And this was crazy because we were one of the lead investigators on it. And I really felt sorry because I knew both these ladies had less than 6 months.
mm,
And I still remember this. I get a call because remember California is 2 hours behind us. I get a call. It's like 8 o'clock and it's early for them. It's like 6 a.m. She's just going on and on. I'm like, what's up? What's up? She said, I don't have cancer. I was like, what do you mean you don't have cancer? She said, I'm sending you the picture. She said, I got to come in. She's already got it FedEx out. It'll be your house in a day. She said, not
mm,
only do I not have it, but there's no damage. All the places that had damage, because it was stage 4, it was in at least 4 locations. Everything that had damage was fixed, and there was no sign of cancer anywhere. So, and she was friends with this other lady. So she
mm.
sends me this. I'm like, what the? So I call her doctor, because I'm running the case. I call her doctor. She said, Mr. Montaldo, it's gone. He said, no, it's gone. It's not, it didn't go in remission. She did. We're all don't know what to say because they've got tons of pictures of the cancer in her body and
Mm.
from the MRI. So they were like, it's
I've
well
heard this.
documented
I've
case.
heard things like this
Yeah.
before.
So she calls her friend and tells her what happened. Her friend gets up feeling great that morning, goes to the doctor, and guess what? She don't have cancer either. Cured both of them.
Hmm.
Nobody knows why they picked them two, what happened. You could say it was a miracle, but neither one of these women are religious. Um, they said the Greys did it, and that's what they're sticking with today, and they're cancer free.
Well,
And
so what do you say? Because Chris
crazy.
says there's no such thing as alien abduction. It's false. What do you?
Of course, a lot of people don't want to think there's alien abduction because it scares the living shit out of.
So if they have looped memories, okay, because I'll just add to this. Okay, Chris, be patient with me. If people have looped memories or scrub memories, and you hypnotize somebody, how do you know you're not getting just an implanted memory of sorts? How do you know? Because to know that there's abductions, obviously there's people who have either been regressed to think to through hypnosis, or they just recall it, or a
Well, I
version of it.
cheat, and this requires a
Okay,
fairly deep
there you go,
form of
Chris.
hypnosis in person, but
Right,
it requires a fairly deep hypnosis.
right,
So what we do is we look for things throughout the person's life.
right,
Okay, so right now it may be looped, but 10 years ago it wasn't.
right.
5 years before that it wasn't either. And since all abductions are start from birth to death, there's always going to be a trace throughout. Even as a child, it's still going to
Mm,
be in there. So the more you go back, the more you find.
right.
So it's easy to loop them, and even the loop ones you can push out of the way to find out how much time or what was going on. Because there's also ways like that, and like I said, they make mistakes too. Like here's another good mistake for y'all they made. So Lynn and I were in Pensacola, Florida, having dinner with
Mm,
two contactees. All right, it was midnight, 12:30. We had just taken a picture. We did a group picture. We had the person at the restaurant take the picture. We all had a great dinner, had a great time, had nice cocktails. And I said I'd meet him around 10 before I left to come home. So 6 o'clock in the morning, my phone is just ringing off, and I wouldn't answer. They started calling the damn hotel phone. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm thinking it's a family thing. Something happened in the family. I pick up the phone. They're both screaming. Like, ah. I'm like, what? You got to come over. You got to come over. I'm like, all right, all right, all right. So I go to the house. I get there. This guy was clean shaven when I seen him. His beard was like this. I mean, it was just big, huge beard. I have never seen that much hair on a woman's leg in my entire life. She looked like damn little monkey girl. And so we went and had it checked out. The doctors figured it was somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks worth of hair growth that grew in under 5 hours.
wow.
And no one could give us an explanation. So under hypnosis, it clearly came out they were gone for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. They had 3 weeks worth of memories. You can't make that up. And what's great for us is because we're very strict about hypnosis is we always run the voice stress meter in the hypnosis. There's always 4 people present. So there's the person who's being being hypnotized, somebody they brought with them that they trust implicitly, myself and whoever's working with me on the case. So there's always that amount of people there. And it's for everybody's safety because we are talking about hypnotizing people and sometimes really deep hypnosis. So I want everyone to feel safe and protected and know that there's not going to be any harm. There's lots of different ways of hypnosis, light hypnosis. Each you can do a light, and I like to start with people with a light, then a little deeper, then a little deeper, then a little deeper. One, it builds trust with me, and it makes it easier for me to get deeper and deeper in their head as we go along. So,
Right.
and we have strict rules. You can't say the word UFO. You can't say the word extraterrestrial. You can't say spacecraft. These words all have to come out of the person who's being hypnotized's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So what we'll usually do is ask them to give us a description of something that went on in their life, and they'll tell us. And then we'll find out more and more about it, and then we come back, because we like to really get into deep. Get the deeper the better we can get, the more information we're going to get. It just comes out, and then
Mm-hmm.
some people, when you get really deep, it just starts flowing out all over the place, and we let them pick it. So anyway, when we're done with the first regression, we get together, we listen to all the tapes and review all the tapes. Then we formulate a line of questioning based on what we learned in this case. Okay. And still, we can't use those words, but they can. So once we do that, then we set up the next hypnosis, which is a good bit deeper than the first one. And then that line of question that we all 4 agreed on is what we use for that. And it works fabulously. It's really, really good. And remember, don't forget, guys, I got degrees in voice stress analysis, facial recognition, and body language. And I got them from big companies because the voice stress I learned from a state trooper. Everything
Mm-hmm.
else, the 2 of the companies I used to hire and fire for sent me to school for voice stress and body language. And I'm really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've fired and hired many people because of it. So when you come down to alien abduction, it's what anybody wants to believe about it, but the government doesn't know anything about it. The government knows squat when it comes to aliens. That's why they do military abductions. And if the alien abductions wasn't real, then why are so many people having military abductions?
Mm-hmm.
And those are easy to prove. People seeing people being taken from their home in black vans, being taken from their homes in black helicopters, things like that. People being pulled over the road and being taken. We have lots and lots of cases like these. And under regression, It clearly shows the military abduction, and it
Well,
clearly
the
shows the
Hills
alien
went through that
abductions.
too, though, didn't
Yeah,
they?
so that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
if the problem for the government is the aliens don't give squat about the government. Okay, they don't care about our governments. They're not telling our governments they're never going to give them any real technology because they don't trust them.
Right.
We're not, because they're not, the aliens aren't worried we're going to use the technology against them. They're worried we're going to use it against the Russians or the Chinese
Right.
or somebody else.
Right.
That's what they're worried about. So they're not going to give
Mhm.
us that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I mean, they can take anybody from their home or anywhere else. So
Right.
and they've got all sorts of technology we'd love to get our hands on. But
Mm.
people ask me all the time, are abductions real or not real? All I can tell you is, after 40 years in the field and probably over 1,000 hypno cases, not including the 87,000 cases we have on file. I'm sorry, 97,000 cases we have on file. I'd have to absolutely tell you beyond any shadow of a doubt it's real. We
Right.
have tons and tons and tons and tons of evidence now that it's real. We have
Mhm.
lots of cases, not just here. We have cases from around the world. And iCard cheated. So what we did was, originally with MUFON, we were MUFON in the early days, we took 5,000 cases and we did abduction criteria. Today we have over 90,000 cases and we have abduction criteria. And what abduction criteria is things that happened in every abduction.
Mm.
Okay, a routine that happens. Now, some of this we made public. About 55% of it we made public, like the blue plasma and other things. But about 45% we still keep a secret. And the reason why is I'd never know who was lying or telling the truth without it. So these are things that happen in all abductions, whatever you're experiencing. So for a routine for you, y'all's first abduction happens pre-birth. It's probably twice before you're born. Usually within a couple of months after you're born, you're taken again. Mom's taken, you're taking the whole lot. As children, I cannot tell you how many children talk about their bug-eyed friends, their reptilian friends, and these people come from contactee families. They're talking about it on a regular basis. We don't regress anybody under the age of 21. By the way, we don't. You can do it yourself, but we don't. We just don't do that. It's just for a lot of different reasons, but we don't do it. But anyway,
Right.
starting around puberty to about age 30, there are some wicked shit happens to all contactees. And most people will never remember that. And most people should never want to remember it. It's horrible.
Mm.
But starting around 30, it starts. It starts into a different way. And 40 and 50 and 60, it changes. But what happens for some people, if they've gotten to a point where they're end of the line at that point, say age 35, they quit abducting them. But they will come back and take their children and their grandchildren and their great grandchildren
It's
and
a
stuff like
lineage
that.
thing for sure,
It
like
is a
family
lineage thing.
lines and things. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
right now, we are the only organization that has 6 generational cases, probably about 25 generation cases, and God knows how many fourth generation. What we're talking about is great great grandmother to great great granddaughter. And they're all contactees, and we have the whole line. So we've had all of them. They've all been regressed. They've all given their stories. You just can't get information like that. And this is like Hitler stuff. The stuff he would have loved to be doing.
Mm.
And what we find out is, under hypnosis, or not even under hypnosis, a lot of times, they are things that happens to all of them, to
Mm-hmm.
each and every one of them. And it happens to all contactees and all abductees. Whether you're one of the ones who think you're there to help or peace, love, and light or whatever, there are
Mm.
certain things that are going to happen to you no
Mm.
matter what. You just
And
can't escape. And that's how we know what's real and what's not real.
with that being said, we are over. And I know. So I'm going to sign us off. And wow, you guys are awesome tonight. We'll
Yes, y'all.
have
Well,
to,
y'all great audience.
yeah, you guys were great. So again, we've come to the end of an amazing, amazing segment. Very informative. So thank you, Joe, for that. It's always informative.
Love, peace, good night.
Love the whole ET talk. And yes, Tamara, I'm doing it. Thanks, Plato. So thank you, Kenny. So big thank you, of course, to Joe for answering and addressing comments. We really appreciate that. Big thank you, Folgers Coffee.
I'm going to get in
Huge
all
thank
y'all's head,
you,
give y'all
Dr.
funny
Justin
dreams.
Snickard. Big thank you, Steve McGinnis. Wherever you guys are watching, whichever platform, please show us some support. Like us, follow us, subscribe to us, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you for it. And be sure to watch out for us on Roku. As Joe mentioned, we are going to be on Roku. We are there now. We're going to be pretty much live in the next little while, next few days. So please check us out. Wednesday night, still working on it. I can assure you it'll be magnificent because that's what I do. I make sure we have magnificent. Thursday night, I'm really looking forward to this one with Philip Kinsella. He's going to be discussing his new book, Sky Crash, and he's basically had a lot of experiences with reptilians and things of that nature. His brother Ronald has been on the show. Just amazing content. You guys are not going to want to miss that. So in the meantime, guys, look at Joe's already peeling his clothes off.
Oh no,
So-
she said, do some Chippendales for you. I'll tip you. I'm like, shh, 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 shh.
Here we go. Here we go. So
Thank you. No. Y'all guys are great, by the way. I love Michelle's art.
yes,
Y'all are great.
thank you guys all. We definitely appreciate you. All the comments are still about being you're magnificent. There we go. So, all right, guys. Everybody have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week.